Hello, this is your right geek, honorary man king, and leader of the Awkward Cop Squad, here with number one Marmaduke fan and Punch Machine to discuss the second portion of Denny O'Neill's Iron Man run back in the early mid 80s. Hello, Marm. Hello, Punch. How are you today?
Thanks for having me on. This was a very fun run to. For me, it's my first time visiting it, but I have fond memories of this era of comics, so it's a high recommend for me.
Okay, and thanks for having me on as well. And this is actually my second time visiting this. Also, the second time visiting this on Right Geek's recommendation, so that's 2 seconds for me. And anyone in chat, if you haven't read it yet, there will be a lot of spoilers, so I guess you're going to have the whole comic ruined for you. But it is a really good comic, so I would recommend maybe coming back and watching this later after you've read it. So,
hello, Warzord. Warzord has joined us in the chat.
He's the board very reliable commentator, right?
Hello.
Yes. Okay, so
he's a Time Lord, isn't he?
He's a board Time Lord. He's got time on his hands. Yeah.
Yeah, he can be anywhere and everywhere at all times. He just brings in his TARDIS and.
Yes. So the last time, just to summarize for anyone who is listening in who was not here for the first stream, last time we covered Iron Man Volume 1, number 163 to 173. We are going to pick up where we left off with 174. And the plan for today is to get to number 182. That was going to be our stopping point for today, basically. Who would like to start, and where do you think we should start? Other than we're starting with 174.
Well, yeah, I was going to say begin at the beginning and then go on until the end and then stop. But
yeah.
But what do you think? What do you think, Scooby-Doo fan? Marmaduke fan.
One thing that struck me is there was a lot of emphasis on Rhodey's adventures, right? So the Tony Stark becoming drunk aspect of it is starting to kind of like fall into the B plot as Rhodey is entering into heroism. I like details like even like Miss Arbogast, like the dumpy secretary who's normally busting Tony's balls all the time. She's loyal to him. There's some neat little scenes like of just people walking in, quitting, and walking out. So we really get the sense that Tony's a well-loved and well-respected guy in the community. He's the good billionaire philanthropist. He's the image of what the bourgeois can do if they love the proletariat rather than like domineer over the proletariat, I guess, for a Marxist lens on Iron Man.
Yes. Although we do have, I have a capture right here. This is Mr. Martinelli, one of Tony's employees, and he has decided to stick around with Stane. And his reasoning is very interesting and I think very realistic when he says here, put a sock in it, lady. Tony Stark stopped having any claim to my loyalty when he began turning his brain to mush with booze. As for the rest, I haven't got many options in life, Mrs. Arbogast. I made a couple of mistakes once upon a time, couple of whoppers. So there aren't many places I can go, not a whole lot I can do. So he feels kind of trapped in this situation. But what I like about this is that the writer is allowing some of the people to say very realistically that Tony has essentially betrayed us in falling into the addiction like he has. So very interesting little moment there.
Yeah,
maybe also this idea of like even it, like I also read it that even if he's mad at Tony, he's still protecting Tony Stark's property, right? I'm good at protecting Tony Stark's property. This is his property. I'm going to stay here and protect it. So I have I just had a feeling that this is the buildup of, I don't know, like a redemption arc or like a complex guy, maybe with mixed feelings towards Tony. Classic comic book, high stakes, you betrayed me feelings, but they still love each other.
Yeah,
well,
I gotta eat.
He
says,
basically
I gotta
the pragmatic. Sorry,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, he's saying, I gotta eat, and to do that, I gotta earn a living, right? Well, the one thing I can do better than anybody else on earth is protect this property. That's what I'll keep doing, and I don't care who signs the paycheck. If it makes you feel any better, I don't like Obadiah Stane, but I don't have to. Yeah, so he's like, even he fundamentally, is loyal to Tony when you get right down to it. And he's going to be here protecting Tony's property, even though it makes the others feel like he's betraying him in some way, right? Yeah, so it is exactly what you say, Marm. It's a complex character who's allowed to have, as you say, mixed feelings about what's going on at the present time.
I mean, he's the pragmatic scab, isn't he? He's Mr. Union Buster. He's willing to work for whoever's going to pay him, and his main concern is protecting his boss's property, right?
Right.
Now, one thing that I found interesting is right there, the little, well, you can't see when I'm pointing, but the little yellow, as a tale told in Iron Man 142. 147. Sorry, my eyes are terrible. So I was actually going to ask. I probably should have looked this up on my own, but what is his history with Tony? Because I think Marmaduke's quite right in saying that it's setting up for things, but I think it may even be more important where he's coming from, because this is clearly a character who's interacted with Tony before. So what do you know much about him, right, Geek?
As I recall, he was in fact mixed up with some criminal behavior prior to his being employed by Stark Industries. I was trying to think of the right word. My brain.
Oh, okay.
Farted. He was
like a tough guy kind of thing, like mafia tough guy or something.
Yeah, something to that effect. It's been a while since I've read 147, but it was one of those things like, one thing about Tony Stark that doesn't often get a lot of play is the fact that he has a tendency to hire people who need second chances of one kind or another. I think I mentioned it in streams before that he will literally take bullets for employees that have crap from their past coming back to haunt them, essentially. So that's this guy's deal too. Is he when he talks about once upon a time he made a couple of whoppers. Yeah, he got mixed up basically with a criminal element that eventually came back to bite him, and Tony essentially protected him from that. That's the history that was like up there. Yeah.
Tony was doing that in the first stream too, wasn't he? With like Ant-Man and the other guy, going to criminals to try and help them redeem themselves by doing good deeds and things.
Right.
So that would work then, because one of the like the scab union breaker archetype is usually like the sort of lumpen proletariat criminal guy. Again, to use the Marxist analogies. So that could work. That's his archetype then, I suppose. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Love the matriarchy. I also had a Iron Man history. I had an Iron Man history geek question. It's on page 12, and it's when Rhodey is talking to the nerd
of the first one,
bow tie nerd. So right geek, is Rhodey basically like admitting that Tony Stark is Iron Man now at this point? Because he has like this conversation where he says, well, Tony's built it for Iron Man, and he's talking about Iron Man in the third person, right? So I thought the idea was like he's covering for Iron Man. He's going to help Tony keep his secret identity. And then it's almost like off panel. He's talking about, he's kind of like admitting, I haven't always been Iron Man. Right. And Tony's mysteriously disappeared around the same time as the old guy who was Iron Man mysteriously disappeared. So is Nerd Guy, do you know if Nerd Guy's in the know yet?
No, Nerd Guy is not in the know at this point.
Okay. Rhodey's probably just not the best secret identity keeper.
Well, he is quite good at putting on fake beards, though. He's at least clever enough to do that.
False whiskers and egg yolk white face. He's a master of disguise.
Yeah, he is. I mean, the egg yolk white face fooled me. I'll give him that. So,
all right, I just went back to look at that 147 to get the details, and basically, Martinelli, he got mixed up with the mob essentially in a prior life, and basically had to go under witness protection because of it. And then he got hired by Tony, and under his new identity, and then he got basically found out, and the mob went after him again, and so Tony protected him from the mob essentially.
Okay, yeah, there we go. He is the eternal scab. But he has a heart of gold, and Tony's willing to work with him. He's willing to work with all types in his company. He doesn't exclude people or deplatform them or say they're too toxic and problematic. So yeah, I think he's the good capitalist. At least in the way that 1980s capitalists tried to envision good capitalists.
Right. One other neat theme in this issue is Shield and Captain Fury desperately trying to get Tony's tech, because I remember that getting brought up in previous issues we did from like years ago. So it's like been this continual thing that the U.S. government is desperate to get Iron Man's armor, and because of Stain, they're going to have a shot at taking it, and that's the setup for issue 175. So there are a lot of like subplots that have been going on for years that they're weaving in quite well to the plot of Stain's hostile takeover of Stark Industries.
Right. Yeah. Basically, now that Stain has taken over, essentially Tony's legacy is in danger. So the theme going on here is that Rhodey now feels obligated to protect that legacy from Stain, and then ultimately from Shield as well. And this first issue, the concern is Stain is going to get a hold of the armor and misuse it for nefarious purposes. So you have to make sure Stain doesn't get it. And then, making sure that Shield, who has been trying to get it for years, doesn't get it either. Yep.
Yeah, trying to keep it away from the military-industrial complex, which is strange, being a company that makes military hardware. But again, he is the good guy, so we need Tony's company to be the good company. So Punchy sounds like a pinko, yeah. Unfortunately,
I think Punchy is being ironic.
A little bit ironic.
Yeah.
I mean, no. I disavow everything on this stream. I don't want to get deplatformed. See what they're doing to Rogan. Come on.
And while we're making
that's actually an interesting point, though. Reiki, because I know absolutely nothing about Denny. Do you happen to know, was he a pinko, or did he have any kind of political inclinations? Because I know
I know he wrote Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and kind of like the whole theme of Green Arrow, Green Lantern is Green Arrow is a hippie and Green Lantern's like a conservative military guy. So based only on that, I would guess he's probably like a super normie centrist or kind of a center left classical liberal guy, because the whole point was like they bang heads, but then they'll help like the poor hippie who looks like Jesus and save him from like the evil corporation that's going to take over his innocent meadows and all his animals, right? So it's kind of a little lefty, but still like, we can all get along with those.
So Denny's like Joe Rogan, then basically Denny's the Joe Rogan of comic book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's basically, I think he had sort of the default opinion that a lot of Marvel writers had in that period, which is, basically a little bit left of center, but not in the same way that we sort of have leftists today. They were still we can all get along. Sometimes I don't like that those conservative hard hats that want to fight the war in Vietnam, which I disagree with, and so on. But they still basically were on good terms with everybody. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's something interesting that I was actually thinking about today while I was going over like possible talking points for the show. The Vietnam factor. Would you guys want to get into that at all?
As in Tony being in Vietnam originally for his origin story?
Well, that, but just the whole treatment of like Vietnam and veterans and the backdrop of the war, which at that point had only relatively recently ended. Is that something we should get into, or should we?
I mean, I'm cool with it if you think you can tie it in. So like this is
if
this is like 83.
Tie it into you can tie it into the comics we're looking at right now, sure.
No, definitely. Specifically with this, what was it? The last stream, I think it was, where Captain America meets up with the homeless veteran, right? Do you guys remember that? I think it was right before Antifa Man comes out and tries to burn down.
Okay, so you're talking about 172?
Probably. Yeah, there was a very short little exchange between I believe it was Captain America and like a Korean War veteran. I want to say something like that, like a homeless veteran who was helping him out. Does that ring a bell?
Is that the one that he was talking?
I remember Tony kind of blaming himself for getting on Tony's case. Yeah, and I remember the Antifa guy. Yeah. Yeah,
it was around there. There was very, very brief. I mean, he wasn't like a major character or anything. He's just like a side character. But he kind of showed up and he was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'll help you out, Captain America, because I'm a veteran and blah blah blah, like America, right?"
So you're probably thinking about the part before he goes into the flop house.
Yeah,
where he's looking at Tony,
pointing him out.
The guy out.
I think that was the guy.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. The point being that they do have these homeless veterans running around in the comic, and then what I thought was interesting was that Tony himself was a homeless veteran. This spoilers. Homeless veteran wandering around the streets, drinking himself to death, and almost freezing to death in a doorway, which is actually I don't want to get too much into it, but I have worked with like veterans outreach programs before in the past, and that is actually still a major issue. Trying to get homeless veterans off the streets this time of year. In fact, it's a classic story, especially around the Vietnam era, which is where Tony was from. Was a specter of the culture, yes. But what I thought was interesting was that this was nowhere brought up in the comic. The fact that Tony is a homeless Vietnam War veteran. Now, usually when you've got like a homeless Vietnam War veteran, right? Like the idea that he is a homeless Vietnam War veteran is pushed front and center, right? Because we've got to be thinking about Vietnam, we've got to be thinking about the horrors of war, we've got to be thinking about veterans and their plights and all these other things. But with Tony, he's homeless because of Belle Delphine, basically. He's the romantic playboy who lost it all to alcohol. And by the way, amongst like 1,000 other things, he was a Vietnam War veteran. So that I thought was kind of interesting, the way that they depicted Tony in what at any point after this, right? Like in the 1990s and the 2000s, the 2010s. Had they done this kind of story, I really do think they would have played up that Vietnam War. Tony's a broken veteran. He's suffering PTSD or something to that effect, right? But here we have and they're clearly cognizant of the war, right? Because Rhodey and Tony, homeless from Gamer Girl bathwater, yes. That stuff is beautiful.
He simped for the wrong lady.
I don't know if you saw the last one, Matt, but she actually gave Gamer Girl bathwater pheromones to all the men. That's what mind controlled them. So there's a whole deep lore. You should check it out.
Deep lore. Yeah.
But what was it? God, Gamer Girl bathwater. Okay. I just lost my train of thought. Getting back to Vietnam, because that is something that's quite important to the plot, right? The Vietnam history between Tony and Rhodey, because this is right. Like the battle buddy. This is Achilles and Patroclus, right? Well, yeah, probably. So that aspect of the Vietnam story is quite important. But when it comes to Tony's mental illness and his substance abuse, his homeless status, his possibly freezing to death, which, any other time it would seem like the obvious softball thing, but not a mention of it. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay, yeah. So he literally is a homeless veteran, but they don't make a big deal of that narratively in this. Yeah, story.
Literally. Yeah. He is a homeless, drunk, mentally ill Vietnam vet. But he's not a homeless, drunk, mentally ill, quote unquote Vietnam vet, right?
Yeah.
They don't make it obvious. Yeah, but it is like a subtext to what's going on. So basically,
maybe,
what you're saying.
I think it. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, what you're saying, Punchy, is that Denny O'Neil is able to present a thematic element that would have been important to the readers of the early mid 80s in a way that is subtle, that people can grasp, but yet isn't beating you over the head with a 2x4 about it.
Yeah, I mean it could be like that, because that's what I was thinking was the comics code, right? Because whenever I see something in old comics that kind of is a bit weird or doesn't sit quite right with me, I always jump to blaming the comics code. I'm not a big fan of the comics code if you guys haven't figured it out yet.
You don't hold to the Ben Shapiro position that censorship makes art better, right?
No, not really. I mean, sometimes it can make art different, right? Not necessarily better though. And it's not the kind of art that I would enjoy, certainly. But specifically with like the comics code, right? Because this is one of the big things about the comics code. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. But it was that you were always supposed to be deferential to American authority figures, right? Like cops and the military, right? These were always supposed to be presented in the best possible light. So if he was going to do a story with Tony the Drunk as a drunk, mentally ill Vietnam veteran, that would have been, too bad and got him deplatformed and censored out of the stores. Have his GoFundMe pulled or something. But I don't know. Like
I feel like comics didn't worry about taking shots at Vietnam though.
Yeah,
like, it was the same era when Captain America is saying I don't want to be Captain America anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That was the other thing, because I was thinking like, well, they were dealing with like Punisher. I think a little bit after this was when Punisher started getting big, but yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know much about Denny's run, so it could be either way. Comics were still for kids then. Yeah, but again, you've got drunk Tony lying in bed right here saying I'm thirsty or beat up. I mean, it's for kids, but kids.
I think.
I mean, this is just me.
Yeah. Go ahead, and then I will speak.
Yeah, I just this might just be me, right? Like, because I had kind of a messed up childhood, but in my experience, like kids are pretty dark, right? They can handle a lot of like really violent, gruesome, grueling things, like stuff that like I as an adult am kind of squeamish about, right? So I don't know.
I think
would a kid be able to handle a post-traumatic stress disorder story? This is kind of like the question, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you could. I feel like PTSD as like a cheap plot gimmick is obnoxious because it's the writer saying, "Oh, I'm going to do a PTSD episode," right? But I don't think it's something that's beyond a kid's comprehension, right? Like because a kid can connect with being scared. That's something a kid can latch on to. I wouldn't be afraid to write about it.
So Matt says it's not the comics code. DC and Marvel was still printing war comics in '83. Batman and TEC had homeless drunk vets and regular supporting characters in '89.
So yeah, so I mean, it could just be Denny writing a character who isn't a stereotype. That's kind of weird. Like I don't know if I can deal with that. Like a comic book character who isn't a one-dimensional stereotype. That's like.
One more neat thing I want to observe about this page is kind of like how we're humiliating Tony, right? Like the transition is Stain commenting on this genius lock was designed by a rival of mine, and now he's just a loser. And there's Tony in lying in a hospital bed, right, with a black eye. So the scene transition is underscoring his fall from grace.
Right. And I know if it would just come up for me, I know, Marm, that you commented on this part on this page. If it will let me scroll down. This part, the panel design.
Oh yeah,
here.
yeah. It's shrinking. Yeah. And so it's like the walls are closing in on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Compositional elements.
Yeah. Compositional elements adding to the story. Imagine that. Yeah.
By the way, I love that Nick Fury is smoking a cigar the entire time, and he even smokes a cigar in a submarine. I think maybe at the end of this issue or the start of the next one. He just never stops.
Well, I was going to say it's not just shrinking though; it's also shrinking and getting further away.
Yes, yeah.
So it's closing in and it's receding at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's imitating a camera shot where you pull away or zoom out from the audience. Yeah.
So it's not the severity that is the issue of the comics being for kids. Vietnam ended 10 years before this comic came out. As a kid's comic, a large chunk of the readers were likely not born
Vietnam
when
aware.
Vietnam ended. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like, did you know we had a desert storm before the Iraq War? What?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I mean, that's true, but I was born in the 80s, and this was before my time. But I remember like the late 80s, early 90s. Even then, like they were still doing stories about traumatized Vietnam War veterans, right? That was like a stock character in a lot of media, all throughout that period. So I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to say it's not the comics code because you're right. It was sort of petering out during the 80s, but it's a very popular stock character.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier. This time is right at the transition where they were starting to write the comics more for the adult audience than the kids audience. So we're seeing in this comic sort of that transition taking place. Yeah, so the Nick Fury smoking a cigar, that's great. After Joe Quesada, you don't have that anymore.
It was also nice to bring the night back from the previous issues. So we got to see Rhodey test his mettle against a similar character that Tony fought earlier. I think at some point Tony said, "Oh no, this guy's got better armor than me." The first time he fought the Knight. So
Yeah. We have more people quitting here. Yeah, and then there's the knight. We bring the knight back. Let's see.
Well, the new knight, because didn't the old knight get like thrown to his death or something?
Yeah, the bishop killed him to keep him quiet.
Yeah, there's knight 2, Queen's Knight or something.
Yeah.
Shows up.
So then here, well, what's wrong with Shield getting the armor, Jim? They're good guys, aren't they? You might get an argument on that from Tony Stark when he had a run with the Fury Company a few years back, referring back to
that was an interesting one.
Yeah. So yeah, the theme of this issue is the protection of Tony's legacy, right? While he is indisposed. And that's something that that really motivates Rhodey in this issue. I was trying to think of the right word there. Yeah, Tony considers themselves out of the munitions business and Fury disagreed. Anyway, the armor belongs to Tony Stark. And until he stops drinking himself stupid and is able to run his life again, we have to do what we think he'd want. Yeah. So that's like the thematic core of the issue is now that the hostile takeover has taken place, now we have to protect the most valuable thing that belongs to Tony by any means necessary, essentially. Okay.
Now, okay, I'm gonna say one thing that kind of annoyed me, even though I forgave it. There are so many panels where Rhodey says, "Man, I wouldn't have to do this if Tony wasn't drinking his brains out." And I kept thinking, well, why don't you go look for Tony and stop him from drinking his brains out, Rhodey? But I guess the in-universe explanation of it is he doesn't know where Tony is, so he's got to go save lives right now. Even though I'm sure he wants to go find his buddy Tony out in the street somewhere, but he's just too busy saving hordes of innocent people from the supervillains.
So is it a question of he can't find Tony, or is it more of he understands that he can't save Tony, that Tony has to be the one to save Tony?
Yeah, Tony has to want it.
I think there was there was a section where they bring that up.
Yeah, well, remember that in 173, Rhodey does actually, pick Tony up off the street and takes him to his house, right? It takes him.
But Tony ran away.
But Tony ran away. So I think it would be very reasonable to assume that Rhodey concluded at this point, well, Tony doesn't want my help, and until he wants my help, there's nothing I could do, right? So the best thing that I can do for him, for my battle buddy, is to protect the things that are most important to him until he can find some way to get out of the hole that he's in.
Well, most of them, not the alcohol and not Belle Delphine. Everything else that's important to him besides the destructive things.
The valuable things that are important to him. Yeah. So I think that can be explained very easily. Pretty much by this point in the story, we see, as you say, we see Tony's part in the story kind of recedes into the B plot, because everyone around him has essentially concluded, correctly, I think, that there's nothing they really can do. That this is a journey that Tony's going to have to make on his own.
Yeah, even the cops later on. I mean, skipping ahead, like way ahead to the end of it.
We are going to get to that part too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, spoilers for that. But even the cops have that same attitude, which I actually was kind of surprised about that too, because they left him to freeze to death basically. And nowadays, right, like that usually won't happen. If you find a homeless vet who's like delirious and drunk, you got to find some way to at least get him some place warm, right? But I don't know. I guess cops in the 80s were rolled differently or something. Probably the Irish cops or something. But
all right, so I captured this one. This is Rhodey saying, "I'm not the guy to fill Tony's boots or helmet or anything else. I'm just a hotshot flyer with a liking for luxury and ladies." Oh, well,
that's the doubt.
And ladies, and yep, it's a slag heap, all right. The finest products of the finest technical mind in the world, a slag heap.
This is really neat because he's concerned about protecting Tony's legacy, and he literally has to break all of Tony's stuff. Ouch.
In order to do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch. Yeah. Ouch.
Well, okay. I think the important point to remember here is that Tony's legacy isn't his stuff, right? Oh, and there's the anti-Irish stuff I was going to bring up. But just real quick, my point for Marmaduke was that Tony's legacy isn't his stuff, right? It's not Tony's material goods or the technology he builds, but it's the person he is, right? He's the anti-Google lizard. So you can get rid of all of his stuff, but his legacy of heroism and positivity is the real treasure there.
Yeah.
But and the real thing is that all of the physical stuff, if that physical stuff falls into the wrong hands, so imagine how
physical,
Tony's going to feel. Yeah.
Yeah, the physical is subordinate to his inner spiritual strengths. So they get rid of the physical because it's extraneous at that point. And
then later the armor is explicitly discussed as something. I think I'm jumping way ahead, but later he explicitly discusses the armor as like the shell he built to keep the world out. So Tony needs to save himself. It can't be Iron Man who saves Tony. It's got to be Tony who has to save Tony.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so moving ahead, we have the anti-Irish stuff.
Yeah, this was pretty triggering for me. I mean, that's pretty blatant right there. That's the old fighting Irish pose. So, especially in current year.
I know, and I think Marm also observed that this is it's the multicultural gang of cardboard stealing thugs.
Yeah.
No, but
that's just proof of how great we are as a country, that our thugs aren't racist.
That's getting dangerously close to deplatforming. I mean, it's true, but you're not supposed to say that. Yeah, so we've got the woke Twitter coming in, trying to steal cardboard from. I guess this guy's probably an out of work trucker or something. Like
he said he's a real estate agent, and the lawyers came and took his company away.
Hush. He's a trucker in my mind. He's a noble trucker living in a cardboard box now. They're trying to steal the cardboard box, but
because his life got ruined by alcohol too, so he's in Tony's same boat. Of course, we're joking about the extraneous details, but of course, the most important thing about this scene is the fact that for this guy in his cardboard box, Tony gives up one of the last valuable things he has on his person, which it just indicates that deep into his addiction, Tony still has that core of nobility that has been retained. So that's the main thing that you want to take away from the scene, is that he's still the hero, right? He's still fundamentally, and the deep core of his being, the hero. He's struggling with addiction and mental illness at the current time, but he still has that nobility that drives him to protect this fellow wino with the only thing that he has.
Is this also the issue? Is this the issue where Rhodey fights like the ancient guardian deity, or is that next issue?
I think that's the next issue, or not sure. I don't know.
Okay, because I guess this.
Do you want to do the guardian too?
Carries across it, right? So one of the subplots with with the cardboard box is it's the homeless guy's last thing. It's the last thing he has, but he looks out for it, and at least he has something he can look out for. And
exactly.
that parallels Rhodey feeling like he needs something to fight for when he doesn't have Tony. Basically, Tony's given him a purpose in life and a goal in life. And now that Rhodey's on his own, what does Rhodey do on his own? So it's the superheroics. Rhodey goes and fights for an ancient space monster to protect its energy source. Directly parallels Tony and the bum needing to clean up their lives and needing to have something in their lives that is worth preserving, even if it's a cardboard box. Right? I thought that was.
Right.
I thought that the writer's doing a very good job having the B plot relate to the A plot.
And what's interesting here is we have Rhodey, as you were saying, kind of trying to figure out what's his place in the world now that he is not Tony's battle buddy and flyboy anymore, right? What am I going to do with my life at this point? So we have here this scene. So here I am in the pad I dreamed about back in South Philly. All the creature comforts, some of them in duplicate. Takes a big wad of green to pay the tab, but I can earn it easy. If I'm willing to be somebody's pet flyboy. If I'm willing to live without the things Tony gave me. The sense of participation, of being more than an employee. Maybe I ought to phone up a lady, grab a show and a late meal. Forget the soul searching. Well, this is him also thinking, I don't want to be a wage cuck because I've already had the experience of working for someone who did not see me as a wage cuck and didn't treat me like one, right?
Yeah.
I want to do something more. I want to do something better with my life. And that, that's really, that really, again, highlights something that I like to repeatedly emphasize, which is that Tony is like the ideal boss figure, or as Marm said earlier, like the good billionaire, right? The one who is not the Orozco lizard. Yeah. So and that's kind of that's the point of him. Yeah.
It is the same issue, by the way. It's like a couple pages after the multi-ethnic fight. So
yeah, it is the same issue. So so this is the issue we have. So this is the one where we have that interweaving of both of them trying to find some reason something to hang their hat on, some value in their life. So something that they can fight for, right?
Do you happen to know anything about that weird alien demon monster thing and the spaceship it was fighting? Or
I feel like that's just the kind of thing they just throw at people all the time in Marvel comics.
Is that what it is? Because that was kind of what I was thinking too. But if there's some kind of deep lore about it, like does it tie into like I don't know, some other superhero doing something? Maybe Thor came in and fought like a Martian or something. You guys don't know?
I don't know if it has any other deep lore to it. No.
Okay. I'd kind of like it better if it didn't have any deep lore, if it was just one of those like Lovecraftian weirdness things that just kind of pops in and you can't explain it and then it winks out of existence again.
Kind of like in Tales 40, Iron Man's story was he goes to this town that's been hypnotized by these aliens, and we basically never see the aliens again. They're just random aliens who flew into the plot and hypnotized this entire town, Yeah,
that's kind of neat. I mean, the thing for me was my autism was kicking into overdrive again throughout this issue, because he does wind up going back to Belle Delphine's Ishtar, Daughters of Ishtar group. So I was trying to find more connections between like the Persephone myth and Ishtar, and there were actually quite a few bridal carries in that issue. Which again, if you caught the last stream, I've got a theory that the Daughters of it, that Denny's doing like a little classical mythology thing. Drawing an analogy between Tony and Ishtar, Persephone, like the hero who descends to the underworld and then has to claw his way back out, changing the world in the process, like that classical story. But again, this might just be my autism kicking in. There wasn't a super lot of it, and without any more context for the weird eldritch monster thing in the basement. I guess
I think the weird eldritch monster in the basement was just we have to have this in here because this is a comic book. Like,
well, yeah, again, but it's just weird that the Daughters of Ishtar, right? A group that's ostensibly related to like all these new age occult movements, just so happens to have a weird eldritch occult monster living in its basement. I don't know. It could be nothing, but I thought it was really neat. So
yeah. So anyway, I captured this because I think this foreshadows what happens later. That basically Tony's in a place right now that he's not even he doesn't even want to protect himself from the elements, essentially. Even when the guy offers, and it just really highlights, the kind of place he is mentally at this moment, and it gets echoed again later in the later issues. Let's see, what do I have next here?
Well, it gets explicitly spelled out in the last one.
Yeah, the last one gets spelled out. Yeah. So there's. So there you go. More stuff on the Guardian.
The non-binary Guardian.
Yeah.
I wonder what her pronouns are, or their pronouns are. I think Rhodey should have asked.
They're probably thoughts incomprehensible to a mortal mind. It's like the Ents. They start describing their gender identity, and they go on for weeks in this long, ancient Eldritch language.
Yeah, it's just that colors and symbols and smells, and that's all that's on my pronoun card. It's just like kind of like one of those angels, right? Like one of those biblical angels that's just wheels and eyeballs and incomprehensible things. So,
which are specifically from Ezekiel. Like one of the things I don't like about the biblically accurate angel meme is they think every angel's an Ezekiel angel. Yeah.
The
They're
alien
also
connection.
The weird six-winged ones.
Yeah. It could be that could be what this is referring to.
Yeah, and then we have here.
There's also the touch that they lose the cardboard box. Like that's how pathetic they are.
Well, I mean, it's pathetic, but it's kind of zen at the same time.
Yeah, they're at peace.
Yeah.
It's just a material thing. It's like his Iron Man suits.
Yeah. Well, he, the other wino says, Tony, it ain't really important what turf you're protecting, as long as you're protecting something. Gives meaning to your life. You understand? Probably you knew that once and you forgot. I didn't. And because I didn't, I got hope for myself someday. I'm going to stop drinking and get things back together for myself. Maybe you will too. Take her easy. Yeah, he's the one that Tony's like, you're not sad about your loss. And the guy's like, no, I can find another box. But the point is that you protect something. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was rather zen. He's like a little homeless Buddha that helps Tony out.
Well, and the Buddha gets quoted later, interestingly, at the end of the last issue. Yeah, so maybe there is a Buddhist journey aspect to this.
Yeah, and I mean this was a good time period for that too. This was when, again, like the whole New Age movement, all this kind of weird esoteric stuff. I'm sure Denny was up on that. Well, yeah, the impermanence of life and of material possessions.
Oh, I actually do have some letters. Remember last stream I was asking if I took we were asking if I had pictures of letters.
Yeah, if you want to do any letters.
Yeah.
I actually didn't read any of the letters. This is new for me.
So the reactions are pretty interesting. We have Michael Kantorovich. Stain International. Get some coffee into Stark. Sober him up. Help him back on the wagon. Something must be done, and I mean right now. Please.
Oh man, I wish that was on YouTube. That would have been. I can picture that good YouTube video.
That's I think I take pictures of these letters sometimes because I like, oh, there's a soulmate right there.
Yeah. They're reacting. It's weird how it's history to us and they're reacting to it in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, dear editor, Tony Stark will certainly be considered brave and heroic when he wins his fight against the bottle. Indeed, it does take an enormous amount of courage to beat alcoholism. But I know what would have made Tony much braver and much more heroic, and had taken much more courage if Tony hadn't taken a drink in the first place. When you consider the fact that Mr. Stark had seemingly conquered his problem, I simply can't feel anything but sick to my stomach at seeing Tony Stark in his present state. Marvel makes its heroes more real, more human than other comics do, and I suppose that's what you're trying to do here. But that's the reason I get so angry and frustrated when I read these current episodes of Mr. Stark. He is real to me. I want to see him as a hero. My feelings aren't objecting to Denny O'Neil's handling of Tony Stark, but Tony Stark's handling of himself. Yes. I mean, these people are basically, expressing the same feelings that I felt when I read these comics for the first time. And yeah, for me, it was history. And I was able to just get right to the next issue, right? Once I started getting sucked into this story. But imagine having to wait from month to month to month for this story to unspool over basically 18 months. I think I would have gone crazy. Like,
God, that actually happened to me with Game of Thrones. The books. Arya Stark. I don't know if you guys have ever read any of the books.
I read the first 3.
Yeah,
I read the first one and decided I didn't like it. So
there's a big cliffhanger at the end of one of the books for one of the characters, Arya, and it's pretty devastating. I'm like, oh my god, how could you do that? And then he stopped writing the books for like 10 years.
I think he said once, if I haven't completed the book by 2017, the fans have the right to beat me up or something.
Well, he actually wound up completing the book where Arya's story gets resolved, and it got resolved on the TV show too. But it was still pretty annoying to go for like 10 years without knowing what happens to my favorite characters. So I know the feels. It's definitely pretty horrible. And one thing I find interesting is that these letters, right? Like they're articulating many of the same sort of sentiments that nerds today would be articulating, right? Like they really getting into the story, and either they like the story or they hate the story, or they're reacting to the characters, right? And then just looking at how that kind of stuff is handled today, it's just I don't know. I don't want to go off onto like current year rants or anything, but it's just really depressing seeing these letters and the responses and the back and forth, and how cordial and informed it all is, as opposed to the where it's just, hey, your comic's crap. Yeah, well, you're a Nazi racist, and I hate you and want you to die, right?
Intelligent discourse. Yeah. We got stupider. Oh no.
It's
no. It's idiocracy. It's coming
it.
Life. Yeah.
It's been happening. Like I'm sure, like people in the 80s, if you were born in like the 1940s or something, you probably saw the same thing. You go back and you try and read like speeches from the 19th century, and it's almost
students had to debate in Greek when they earned their thesis. Not read Greek, but debate in it.
Yeah, actually be proficient enough to debate in it. Yeah, it's I mean, again, I I do think that Idiocracy has a point. I know you guys had pushed back, but I think that these letters are going to be filed into my evidence that Idiocracy is real.
I think we can file it into the evidence, though, that once upon a time, Marvel used to write characters that really, really engaged people's emotions to the point that we have this letter right here where the writer says, I have become increasingly concerned with Tony Stark's present drinking condition. As it has already become obvious, Mr. Stark has gotten himself in quite an amount of trouble. Being a loyal American and a faithful reader, ask anyone, I feel it's my duty to help a fellow American, especially a rich one. Enclosed is a flyer on alcohol abuse.
I'm sure they'll send it to Tony. That's a good
one. but it does really highlight that once upon a time, the writers were so skilled, right, that these characters could actually feel absolutely real to the readers who were following them, right? To the point that someone would want to send Tony an AA flyer to help him out of his problem. Or you get people literally screaming in their letters, pour coffee down his throat, you know? And I don't really, like, even the Marvel comics today that don't make me want to tear out my own eyes, even the best ones don't really engage me on that level. There's just something fundamentally missing in the emotional substructure of today's comics that used to exist.
Yeah, here. I would concur with that. But Marmaduke, you got any thoughts on that?
The feeling of rooting for someone rather than arguing with them as you read. Yeah.
Rooting for someone, feeling bad for them, actually feeling with them that the vicarious griefs and the vicarious triumphs. It's just not there anymore. Everything feels so corporate and empty.
Well, actually, this is going to be really autistic, and I'm sorry for everybody. Would you guys think that this helps explain why My Little Pony got so popular?
It definitely was countercultural in the sense that you were just at peace with them, right? Like they weren't obnoxious. You were just rooting for them, I guess. Like they're innocent. There's an innocence to them.
I think it's more than that, though. Because I've done a lot of work with bronies, right? Like I've got friends who are bronies. I've been to brony cons. Mrs. Punchy is a brony artist herself. And one of the things that you often find with the kind of people that get really invested into broniedom is that they do have this kind of rapport with the characters, right? Like the characters feel real to them. Like
to the point of wanting to adopt Rainbow Dash, right?
Yeah, to the point where you'd want to. Well, that guy was just a jackass. Completely missed the point of Rainbow Dash, and we could get into a whole My Little Dashy thing, but I'm not going to go into there because that's like 3 hours of fun.
I just triggered your brony nerdiness.
Off topic. Yeah,
it's about My Little Dashy, but the point is, I think he was inspired by that same feeling, though. I'll give him that. Like he missed the point of Rainbow Dash, but he did have feelings towards Rainbow. He did see Rainbow Dash, and the character of Rainbow Dash resonated with him on some primal level to the point where she felt real to him, right? And this is the kind of thing that you see time and time and time again with bronies. Like when you ask them, like, why do they like My Little Pony, who their favorite character is, right? Like they love the world and they love the characters and they believe in the characters and they root for the characters. And when the characters have problems, they feel bad for the character. They worry about the characters, right? So I think that may explain. I think people are starved for that in current year. I think My Little Pony is one of the few franchises, even though it is for little girls and weird autistic spurgs, it is one of the few modern franchises that can actually bring readers and viewers and listeners in and get them connected with the characters in the way that comic books used to be able to do. So today's comics have lost the plot. This random event stuck together. Yeah.
That's actually a very good point too.
Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. When I read the main Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur book, it really worked. Like, it was like the joke was she's the smartest girl in the world, but she has a hard time with people, right? She's that nerdy kid who is socially awkward. But then anytime she'd make a guest appearance, the writer wouldn't know what her personality is, and she'd suddenly become like extreme badass girl or whatever.
Yeah. The guest editor suddenly shows up. Yeah, do you guys is that on the docket? Is the guest editor?
Yeah,
I'd love to talk about that one.
Guest editor too. Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking about Assistant Editors Month in a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
yeah, Assistant Editor.
I think Warzor's point is very, very good in that the whole random event stuck together. He's right. There is no real desire and or ability to maintain continuity so that things matter from month to month to month. Like, I've shared things on Twitter in in sort of a joking tone that, oh, well, if you don't like Christopher Kent Wrightwell's Iron Man book, here's all the other things that Tony is doing in other Marvel comics that have nothing to do at all with Kent Wrightwell's book. You can go look there. I actually wrote an article for M3F on that exact subject, but it does really point to the fact that there is no editorial anymore, no supervision. Nobody's saying, wait, if Tony is out in space fighting a literal space god, then he can't be here fighting the Kingpin in New York at the same time. There's nobody like that. Or you have to put a note saying that this happens before he goes out into space to fight a literal space god, right? And yeah, that loss of continuity, I think, also causes a loss of investment because nothing is important, nothing matters.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. I think insofar as I think that having a lot of different stories, like a multiverse kind of approach to stories, isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Like I would like to see Tony going off and fighting space gods and then beating up Kingpin at the exact same time, just because it's comic books and whatever. Let's have some fun.
But the editors know he's doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my thing would be having each individual story making sense and having a structure and having a plot, right? Like, as long as the story about him beating up Space God is really good and the story about him, tussling with Kingpin is really good. Like, I wouldn't really care that there's it's like the Wizard did it kind of logic, right? Like, I'm not looking for plot holes in the multiverse. I'm just looking for is it a good comic on its own as a story, as a self-contained story? And I think Warzord is quite right in that, like, as far as the self-contained stories go, comics have lost the plot too, right? That they're just random events stuck together. So, but yeah, I mean, I could see, like, especially because I'm not as invested in Iron Man as you are, right, Geek? And I know if it was something that I was super invested in, like Rainbow Dash, then I would be very upset if the multiverse was all confused. Because I've actually been getting like that with Mortal Kombat recently. It's ever since DC took over plot, I've been absolutely livid. I've sworn off Mortal Kombat because of that. So yeah, I can kind of get where you're coming from with that, right, Geek? But for me personally, I'd be more concerned with just getting the individual storylines right, which they can't really do.
Maybe maybe that's where they have to start, because and my saying that there's a lack of continuity and that causes a lack of investment, I kind of mean in in a particular universe, because Marvel does allow for essentially its own kind of Elseworlds, and I'm fine with that. And you guys know that there are versions of Tony Stark in the Elseworld space that I really, really love, like 1872, for example. So it's not that I want just the one. It's not that I want one version of Tony or I want one story. It's just that if we're talking about the 616, the main continuity, it's the main. If you're in the main continuity, theoretically, you should make sense with the rest of the continuity.
Yeah. I may not be able to relate as far as Iron Man goes, but I can relate with other things. So yeah, I get you there. What My Little Ponies have Marvel counterparts? Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, obviously, well, no,
that's tough because the superhero personality type's a little bit different than the slice of life anime personality.
Yeah. Crap. Well, I was going to think of all the things that Tara Strong was doing, but those are all DC. So, curses. That could be another stream. Let's do a My Little Pony Iron Man crossover stream at some point.
I had this is a little off topic of that, but it's relevant to this issue 177. So one subplot that I noticed that was kind of cool is the nerd girl from the Thunderball issue is back, and they made her the sister of the nerdy guy who's helping out Rhodey. And every time he talks to her, he calls her sis, so that the reader knows they're supposed to be brother and sister. And then she gets annoyed and says, "Don't call me sis. My name is Chlamydia," or something weird like that.
Clytemnestra, I think, which again is another classical reference. He's really good at peppering things with classical references, pagan references, and references, oblique references to obscure scientists. So I liked all that stuff too. But yeah, what was he originally the brother of Clytemnestra? Because I was under the impression that he was, but I might have been mistaken. Do you remember?
Well, I felt like she initially was just introduced as like a cute nerdy girl secondary character who was at the factory making fun of Thunderball or whatever. And then I didn't see any hint that she was anyone's sister there. And then suddenly she shows up in the next issue and she's a sister, right? So I think it was clearly like, oh wow, I came up with a cool nerd girl waifu. I'm gonna let's find a way to get her into the main action. We'll do it.
Okay, yeah, I'd have to go back. Like I was under the impression that she was his sister right from the start, but that may have been because I was looking her up on like the Marvel database. Because I was like, oh, cute nerdy girl. I got to learn more. But would you like to know more? Yes, click.
Well, the trick would be to find her first appearance and see if it was the Thunderball issue her first appearance, or were there?
I think that was her first appearance. I don't remember what number it is. I mean that we could probably get into that later because that's going back a stream and it's. we got the weird space.
So I have a capture here of these cops actually took Tony to a hospital.
Yeah, see, not all
the Irish ones. See,
yeah, they're not Irish. That's why.
They're like, looks familiar somehow. That's because they all look alike after they've been on the sauce a while. Just another skull. Clean them up, dry them out, and put them back on the street. You'll be seeing him again in a few weeks. Yeah, so that's
we're getting some hints of like society not caring about Tony as he's falling through the cracks. Like that does show up a lot. My dad was a drunk. You're just a drunk. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's it's social commentary of a kind, but again, it's very, very subtle and skillful social commentary. It's not beating you over the face with it, right?
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine someone having enough writing talent to comment upon how society treats drunk, mentally ill, homeless veterans, right? without actually saying outright, "This is what I'm doing. Notice me. Notice me."
It's an observation rather than a declaration. If you can observe people learn to be rude to bums, because if you let a bum will just talk your ear off and take every penny you've got, right? Especially if you live in the city, you quickly learn to do that, right?
Right.
So it's something that's normal that you have to do, or you're just going to get suckered. But it's also something that's kind of sad, because these people are wandering around trying to talk to people, and most people have learned not to engage with them at all. And that's the situation Tony has fallen into. If you were going to preach about it, you'd have someone make a point about it. You would dress up the people being rude to Tony as, like, I don't know, some caricature of a Karen, and you give the old man a red hat when they yell at Tony and tell him, "Get a job, you loser," right?
Orange Man shows up.
Yeah.
Big highfalutin Donald Trump character in his face or something, you know.
I'm richer than you now, Tony.
There, a literal demonic bad guy will show up and start talking about how we need to clean these winos off the street, you know, because
he'll pass a hostile architecture bill in the city council, to stick like railroad spikes on all the park benches so Tony can't lie down. Like that. Yeah, this was that whole section that we were alluding to earlier in the stream, right? Yeah. Where he's basically telling Tony that he's the one that has to change, and you know he can't really do piss all to save him if he's not going to save himself.
Right. That's what booze is for you, you know, pure poison. If you keep drinking, well, heart, liver, kidney, brain, nerves. You're going to destroy them all. Hard to say which of them will go first, but one of them will, and then you'll be dead, or you'll wish you were. I think he's already at wishing he was dead at this point. Trigger warning, suicidal ideation, but...
yeah, I mean,
when we get to it, he has a Hamlet moment, right? Like, maybe my life isn't worth saving. Yeah.
I mean, he's possibly like when he's out in the rain and he can't even be asked enough to get into the cardboard box and keep warm. But can I just say that I was very triggered by this whole exchange here, because basically what he's doing, this doctor, right? He's trying to get Tony into an alcohophobic conversion therapy, right? He's trying to convert him from an alcophile to an ex-alcophile, right? So I disavow conversion therapy as a pinko. And
Mike Pence, Darth Sidious meme.
Yeah, it's very triggering. And you just know that, right? Like, there's a subtext of like, go to AA, which is a religiously based organization. So it's a religious conversion therapy that they're trying to get him into. So that's problematic. Wouldn't fly in current year.
Let's see, what else have I got here?
See, what you can do that, Star? He should have been lecturing him about privilege or something right now.
Yeah, you know, like Patsy Walker. He should be lecturing Tony about how you don't know how what it is to have a difficult life. You know, all you ever know is and riches. Yeah. To tell that to the guy whose father was, at minimum, emotionally abusive, that he doesn't know what it's like to have trauma. And in the end, you know, in the case of Patsy Walker, this is, of course, in the current Iron Man comic, that's after all of this has happened. So, FYI, if there's anyone out there who's reading the current Iron Man comic, which I don't suggest you do, just let me do it. I'll take the hit for you. That this is just really putting a lie to the whole suggestion in that entire run that Tony has never known hardship. I've been leaning on this in my videos where I discuss the new Iron Man run, but really the idea that you mean I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, don't read the chat. Don't read chat, right, Geek? Just close chat and don't look at it anymore for the rest of the stream, please.
Did you draw the bronies in?
No, worse. I mean, right, Geek can decide what she wants to do.
All right, I'm gonna put it up there. You mean Mrs. Stark? Yes, because Marvel just announced. I don't know if you saw Marm, but
Marvel he's gonna marry. Yeah, he's gonna marry. Ask me about my feminist agenda.
He's going to propose Miss Feminist Agenda. Yeah, and do I have such a problem with that? I mean, I said on Twitter that I don't know. It's not entirely out of character, I don't think, because he does famously suck at choosing lovers and has been sucked in by the bathwater before.
Yeah, I mean, this whole story got started because of terrible women that were horrible.
Yeah,
he shouldn't have got involved with. So I
yeah. So I mean, the reason I am against it is not because I think it's out of character necessarily, but because it's not going to be written. It's not going to be written like what it is, aka a terrible idea. It's going to be written because you can see in the article in which this is announced that Can't Write Well clearly thinks Patsy is the perfect fit for him, even though she doesn't have any concept of the difficulties he's gone through in his personal history, berates him all the time for faults he doesn't even have, and clearly doesn't seem to like him all that much, not as he is. She sees him as this project, this person that he's going to fix, this terrible privileged white cis male who needs to be brought down a peg. You know, that's not the foundation of a healthy relationship.
Well, but
says,
I don't know. Maybe having like a dommy mommy feminist is just going to straighten him out and cure him of all his toxic masculinity.
Yeah, his wedding band as a dog collar. Yeah, that's. I mean, and like I said, it's not because I am the Iron Man historian. I know that that he does have a tendency to, as we say, get obsessed with the bathwater, to be a little bit simpy, to be a little bit on the sub end of the spectrum. I get
a little bit,
but okay, yeah, he's a sub. Let's just put it out there right now. He absolutely 100% a sub. But that being said, and yeah, you could write stories about him. You can write stories just like this one that we are discussing right now, where his being a sub by nature gets him into some serious trouble. But only if you're actually conscious that that's what's going on. And Chris Can't Write Well is clearly not conscious that that's what's going on. If I were writing it, I would absolutely make it explicit. I'd hang a lampshade on it.
Oh, God.
Like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, God. This is kind of an ongoing thing with me, I think. Like saying that current year storylines could work if only they worked, which, you know, they usually don't.
They wouldn't suck if only they wouldn't suck if
only they didn't suck. But yeah, I think this is honestly, because I've been thinking about this for several days now. Ever since Right Geek was posting about it, and I do think that this is a perfect case of it wouldn't suck if only it isn't going to suck. Because right, like as you're saying, he is very simpy. You know, Hellcat, I honestly don't know too much about Hellcat. You know, she's got nice gams. That's about all. But I do think that this could be like a great, like, Tony gets into a relationship, it's really bad. He gets a divorce, he gets Me Too'd, he gets dragged through the mud. It's absolute hell for him. He loses half his stuff. You know, and just kind of have like this social commentary about good men getting shafted by current year kind of sensibilities. And you could give Hellcat some heroic qualities too, right? Like somebody who actually knows Hellcat could probably think of a good way for her to appear as sympathetic in the storyline, but just have both of them be miserable in the end and break up and divorce and just blah 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 blah, but have like a point to it, right? Like have some kind of redeeming story arc where they both learn something about themselves and they both try and find a way to pick up the pieces, right? So I think it could be brilliant social commentary. I think that this kind of setup could be the best social commentary in comic books for years.
You're hoping for too much.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping for way too much. I mean, that's not going to happen. But I think that knowing Tony as a character and having kind of a rough outline of Hellcat, I think this could be like the comic book to resonate with kind of old boomer millennials who are now regretting their life decisions and that kind of thing. This could be the crowning achievement of the 2010s and early 2020s. So it's not going to be, but I can see it. I can see it working. Hellcat was a great character in the 70s and early 80s. Okay, that's.
I went and read a couple like old Avengers. She was just like a cute. It was like, oh, a girl from Archie Comics got turned into a superhero. She's a cute teenage redhead kid.
Yeah.
Wait, she was originally from Archie Comics?
No, it was a knockoff. No, she was from Marvel Romance Comics.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that would be kind of a trip if like Jughead was in the same extended universe as Iron Man or something.
They came up. I actually kind of like this as an explanation of it. I don't know if I love it or hate it, come to think of it, but their explanation from it is that she had an emotionally abusive mother who wrote her life into comic books, and so the romantic comic books were all written and drawn by her evil, manipulative mother.
Oh, that's messed up. I don't like that. I disavow that one, like unironically.
That's also kind of like a way of throwing shit at the people who made the actual comic books, right?
Yeah, that's just mean. God, like in my dark times, right? Like sometimes late at night, I get very angry and I get very dark, and I start trying to imagine all the ways, like if I took over Marvel, like all the ways I'd mess with the comic book characters of today, like retconning different characters and or like the Buffyverse, right? That was my main thing. Like I would take over the Buffyverse from Joss Whedon and I'd do a complete number on everything, right? I don't like thinking like that. I don't actually want to do stuff like that. And hearing that other people have been doing that is just, I mean, they did that to Lobo in DC, which, I don't want to get into that, but that's a whole big Spurg fest. I absolutely hated their attempt to retcon Lobo. God.
Okay. Speaking of editors messing up Marvel Comics, is the next issue the guest editors issue, right?
I think so. Which number are we on?
I think we've been on 177, right?
Yeah.
Unless Right Geek has screenshots from multiple issues mixed together.
Well, we're kind of jumping around a bit, but I think because 178 is the
struggle is from 178. That's the guest editor issue. I guess, are we going to skip the little kids as the Avengers story?
Oh, that was the best one. This is my favorite story. This is the Coke addict story.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Coke addict. I love how it is simultaneously like putting innocent kids into Avengers situations. It's a perfect joke because the joke is oh man, I've been hitting the sugar water too much lately. Maybe I am really the bad kid who's been bullying the other kids, right? So it's sending up the alcoholism plot, but the beats actually work. Like the kid, I think Mikey goes through like the feelings of betrayal. He goes on like his journey through the underworld where he doesn't know what to do. I even just kind of like I like the innocence of this, that the Avengers are still innocent enough that little kids in their universe would admire them and want to dress up as them after they start like killing each other and schools are getting blown up. It would be weird to dress up as those guys, but.
Well, I mean, I'm sure some edgelords would be out there doing that, but it would be. Yeah, this is
definitely a future edgelord.
Yeah, he'd be the one dressing up like what's his face, the one that blows up. This is the best panel in all of Iron Man. Oh no! We wanted to call attention to that one. Oh, that one's really great too. But the Avengers are simps. There you go.
You stupid Avengers are all simps. I hate you.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun too. I mean, it's basically the whole storyline told. Well, not exactly. I mean, he doesn't get taken over by Stain Industries, but he does get taken over by a bad guy. He does have his identity stolen. Falls into alcoholism, but then he realizes he needs to be a hero and go back to kicking butt. So it's a little microcosm of what's going on, but it's cute and it's fun.
I like that he's 8 years old and he's allowed to use an acetylene torch in his dad's workshop.
Well, I mean, that was the 80s. Nobody cared back then.
Yeah.
I mean, today, like, you're not even allowed to go outside without a full face mask on,
Yeah.
So this is just complete. This is what happens to generations. They get simpier and weaker, and the Irish cop more anti-Irish stuff. They also brought up Mrs. Rigatoni.
Like hooligans. You guys have been acting like hooligans. Oh yeah, and this part you shared on Twitter too. The next day, a child sleeps blissfully unaware that he is about to fall victim to that most heinous of crimes. Right. Stealing candy from a baby.
But they don't even say it. Yeah, it's just the narrator's being as dramatic as they would be for Tony's real world situation.
Yeah. He's playing it straight, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was that's the A story from Assistant Editor's Month, number 178. Yep. And then I've got.
But then it was paired with a very dramatic story of Tony's alcoholism. So the interesting thing is they have it be incidental, like just like a few panels or a few scenes in roadie adventure stories, and then once in a while they'll have a whole issue devoted to Tony, basically to like I guess to kind of like help the poor readers who are so desperately want to see him get out of this situation. They know they have to give them some grace before they get back to Rhodey's fun adventures in China.
Yeah. So do you think? The China adventures, we got to mention those, especially given Olympics and everything. But do you think that because that was one of the grimmest stories, like the B plot after it. Do you think that the reason they brought in the assistant editor for the kind of fun kids thing was just to take a bit of the edge off of Tony Stark sinking deeper and deeper into alcoholism and struggling to not drink?
If I were an editor, that would sound like a very reasonable way to do it. Yeah.
I mean, have they ever done that kind of episode before? Are there other issues where they just kind of randomly bring in assistant editors? Because it seems like weird timing, like very convenient timing.
I think it was not.
There was a real world reason too. That they were off in like California at some meeting or something at the time, so it was just the assistant editor in the office.
Okay.
That was in charge of these issues, and it was across the line. Like I've read the Captain America and the Avengers from the same month, and they also have silly bits in them too. So I think it was.
Oh, okay.
I think it wasn't just taking the edge off Iron Man. I think it was just all right. While we're gone, we're gonna let you have some fun.
This is good timing, I guess.
Yeah. It just happened. Yeah,
I learned this from Zach. They also would have an issue in the file ready to go in case the artist or writer got sick. So it'd just be sitting there. It'd be a complete story, but it wouldn't have anything to do with any of the ongoing plots. If there was some kind of deadline catastrophe, they'd yank it out and publish that.
Yeah. And be
That's a
like,
good idea.
sorry, deadline. Yeah. I've actually read issues where they've just come out and said, the deadline demon got us. So here is the story we put in the trunk a couple of months ago that we didn't publish, like.
Oh God, yeah. Sorry, Warzord's just reminding me about Soy Boy Lobo. Please don't bring up Soy Boy Lobo. Very, very sensitive subject for me. That and My Little Dashie, both of those things are off limits for future streams.
Isn't Fallout Equestria like one of the longest fanfics ever written?
I mean, that's how it's billed. It probably is. I mean, there might be like some really obscure fanfics that are longer. I know there's like weirdo indie artists that have done, like outsider authors that have done really long things too. But it's probably the longest one that's spawned its own genre of My Little Pony fictions. So. I mean, it's really long, and it's got.
So at some point, we got to see if there's any intersecting between Iron Man and My Little Pony fandoms, right?
I mean, like Iron Man, My Little. I mean, there are Iron Man, My Little Pony crossovers.
Of course, yeah.
But you mean like a really big community, or
anything, right? I guess the Pony comics were published by IDW, so they haven't had. I don't think they've had any interactions with the big two superheroes. I think they've met they have met the Transformers or something. They've had a couple crossovers.
Yes, they did. They did have a couple of crossovers with the Transformers. Yeah.
This is where we first meet Greta, right?
I believe so. Yeah, but this is him being treated like a bum. Let's see.
A lot of dramatic architecture shots, by the way, since it's mostly Tony walking around being sad. The artist has a lot of duties to make it exciting as possible.
Yeah. Here, ain't that the skull we hauled into the hospital a couple days ago? Let's talk to him. What for? What's he gonna say?
Yeah, what's the whole Skell thing? Where does that come from?
See, I've heard it on TV, but I feel like it's one of those slang words that fell out of use.
I think it's just a slang word from the period.
I mean, should I feel really offended by it, or what? I'm not sure.
Probably.
In New York, a tramp or homeless person. It's a regional dialect. What region? Upstate New York.
Upstate. Really? I'm from Utica. I've never heard it.
You want some advice, fella? You want some advice you probably won't take? Admit you're an alcoholic. You do that, you got a shot. And he's still denying. But I'm not. It's nerves. Well, it's probably nerves too, but you're self-treating.
Yeah.
I want to comment on this from a meta-narrative point of view. So we've stretched out, unlike Demon in a Bottle, which was all packed into one issue. We're stretching out Tony's journey through alcoholism. He's basically already been told, you're going to kill yourself. You almost did kill yourself. This issue is Tony in denial about his problem. After recognizing he has this problem in this issue, he's still drinking his brains out in future issues. So it's kind of like, first he's got to realize he has a problem. And then he has to get to the point where he actually wants to live and do something about his problem. So I like that. Right. I like that it's spaced out so that like denial comes first. And then, I don't know, realization or awakening experience comes later.
Right.
Yeah, so I wonder if maybe he was reading those alcohol pamphlets that he got sent by all the young fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Art nerd thing. Okay. in the top left panel, they're bright red, right? Because they're tiny little people, and when you have tiny little people far away, they just do these color holds, right? Then you go down, and then the background panels are red behind the cops. So what that means is there's a little red used in the top, middle, and bottom part of the page, but it's used symbolically all 3 times. So it ties everything together.
Is it symbolic of communism?
More like, oh no, blood. That frog is probably poison. Oh no, danger.
Yeah.
It's the danger of it's symbolic of the danger of alcoholism, kids.
Yeah, or the hellfire that's awaiting you as you're drinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's going on here is this cop basically bets him. He says, "I'll give you $50 if you can stay sober until midnight." Basically. And he says, "It'll be a pleasure to take his money. Anybody can do anything for a lousy 12 hours."
Yeah, so it's
grab a cab to the plaza.
It's like No Nut November, except a lot shorter.
No Nut November. And you can see already he's thinking, "I'll get champagne." Oh wait, no, because I gotta win this bet, right? Yeah. Dope. Hey, maybe Martinelli will lend me a few dollars. So he stops by Martinelli's place, right? Could you lend me a few dollars till tomorrow? Sure, 20 be okay? By the way, Vic, what are you doing these days? I'm still with the company. You mean Stain International? Yeah. You thought I'd quit when Stain took your place? Tony, I got bills to pay every month, and the job I do the best, the job that pays the best, is protecting that particular piece of real estate.
Yep. There we go. Pragmatic scab man.
Scab. Yeah, practical scab. You don't like it, I'm sorry, but I gotta make a living. I'm not rich. I can't afford to spend my time in a bottle. You got no right to expect loyalty. You drank it away.
But he feels bad about it, right?
Yeah. He feels bad about it. Why'd I do that? Kick him when he's down. I'm pretty mad at him, and I didn't even realize it. Yeah. But it's real, real sincere, realistic human emotion, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing that happens to people when they're in the cops too much. That's a real conversation right there.
I always thought Martinelli was one of my best friends, and he turned on me like that. And he's looking at the bar. So we have this whole drama of he's talking to all of his old friends, right?
Again, real conversations.
Yeah.
You look up people you haven't spoken to in years. Hey, what's going on? Yeah. Say, you wouldn't happen to have $5 on you, would you?
Yeah. Stark, I never expected to hear from you. Just wondering how you are, how you been. Looking for a job. It isn't easy, but I couldn't work for that, Mr. Stain. Good for you. Have you been drinking, Mr. Stark? No, not yet. Well, you were my employer. Wasn't my place to say anything to you, but now that you're not, if you ask me, you should go to that Alcoholics Anonymous. They did a marvel for my cousin's boy, Fred. It's not that kind of problem, Mrs. A. What kind of problem is it? Answer me that. Yeah.
there's the conversion therapy again. Trying to get him into religious conversion therapy to change him from an alcophile. He was born that way.
Okay. Come on, scroll down for me. All right. All right, so this is Gretel's first appearance, actually.
Yeah. Good old
like the
Gretel.
fella says, we all gotta go sometime. Let's hoist a few. I'll pass. Still trying to stay sober. What's the matter, Stark? We ain't good enough for you? You'd rather listen to some quack medico than Ozzy J. Sanborn? Get stuffed, Stark. So even like his drunk wino friends are mad at him.
Yeah.
Well, drunk wino friends.
Yeah, again, real
Why didn't I go with them?
conversations.
Yeah, real conversations. Why didn't I go with them? Why am I torturing myself? I've got to have a drink. Got to. Got to. So he's really craving it. Rise and shine, twinkle toes. Move along. It's almost midnight. Midnight? So, it's the skull you polluted? It's the skull you polluted? No, I'm in rotten shape. I've never felt worse, but I'm sober. I won't stay that way. In 5 minutes, I'll be drinking again. But right now, this minute, I'm sober. Okay, you win the 50. Officer, thanks. Thanks for showing me how hard it is, for forcing me to realize that alcohol is my problem. That's the reason I did it. You see, my old man was a drunk.
Now, what's interesting about this is earlier he said that to his buddy, and Tony didn't hear it. Yeah. But here it's presented as the dramatic revelation at the end. Yeah.
Now it's personal.
Yeah. And as you said, Marm, they're extending it out and showing the different steps to how you fall into the problem to begin with. When do you recognize that it is a problem? And then even if you recognize that it is a problem, it's still going to take you some time to actually dig yourself out of that problem, to actually decide that this problem is something you actually want help with from someone else, right? And that's what the later issues in this section that we're going over start getting into. Yeah.
No, I appreciated his honesty. Right at the end there, where he's like, in 5 minutes, I'm going to be drunk again, but right now I'm sober. That's it's one of those good little touches.
Again, and this is where we get more
fetal alcohol
more
syndrome.
Info on Gretel. Yeah. They told me I'm going to have a baby.
Is it just me, or does she get hotter the more they're both drinking? Is that just me, or is that like an intentional thing?
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I mean, she doesn't get like hot, but she, from the first panel,
is it supposed to be simulating how Tony sees her when he's drunk?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because like her forehead shrinks and she gets like better proportions and she becomes more symmetrical, less wrinkly.
I think it's more like Marvel artists are almost never used to drawing any woman who doesn't look like she's 20-year-old Marilyn Monroe, right? So when they finally have to draw a woman who looks a bit more beat up, they just don't know how to do it consistently.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. But I was thinking that it was a really clever like visual thing where they were just showing like the alcohol goggles coming on. But who knows?
Okay, we're now in Hong Kong. You wanted to talk about the Asia stuff.
Yeah, well, we probably shouldn't talk about the Asian stuff because you would get deplatformed if we really get into the silliness with the Asian stuff. But yeah, I rather like, because again, I like Rhodey. I like all the Rhodey plots. I enjoy watching him struggling with coming into his new identity as Iron Man. And I also like Hong Kong. So, it's fun. It's fun to have like Rhodey in Hong Kong. The Mandarin, spoiler alert, puts in an appearance. It's a bit silly. Definitely wouldn't fly on a Netflix series. But
I liked how in the Mandarin fight, he didn't expect Rhodey to punch him. He expected Iron Man to use all of his Iron Man
because again, this is Rhodey trying to come into his own as Iron Man, but he's not Tony, and that's the thing that he keeps bringing up time and time again, is the fact that he is Rhodey. He's Rhodey Iron Man. He's War Machine, not Tony Iron Man. So there's a couple like un-PC sections, like where the Mandarin says, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to be black. I thought you were going to be a white dude."
I thought you were going to be Tony Stark. Yeah.
In fact, you were probably Tony Stark.
That's just added realism.
Well, yeah, I know, but you're not allowed to say that kind of stuff anymore, Marmaduke. And Rhodey saying he expected to find Chinese people in China, which is actually weird because Hong Kong at that time had like a massive expat community. So you'd find a lot of other people. And of course, it's Cantonese. So, the Cantonese are quite distinct from the mainland Han Chinese. But I don't know. It's just more problematic stuff that we'll have to iron out when we try and sell this comic to the Chinese.
Or the communists will just take it over and erase it weirds me out that I can live my whole life with Hong Kong being this cool place I'd want to visit, and maybe within our lifetimes it could be gone. I don't know. I had sympathy pains while reading this one.
Yeah, it sucked. I mean, I never actually got a chance to go. I had family who was living there working for foreign corporations back when it was still part of the crown. But last time I saw something coming out of Hong Kong was a live leak video of a young man getting blasted in the face with tear gas for protesting the Chinese crackdown. So R.I.P. Hong Kong. That's what happens when you. That's what happens when you try to get your own autonomous zone in
Tony
a real
deals
communist
with evil
country.
central bankers.
Yeah. So, in that scene that I flashed before with Gretel, she's announcing that she's going to have a baby. Now, I don't believe this is Tony's baby, but once again,
no,
it's not his. But once again, it shows that the inner core of nobility, that he is trying to get a better circumstance for her so that she doesn't have to give birth on the street, basically. So this is where he actually starts trying to access, his money and the apartments that he used to have, and he's finding that he no longer has access to those things. So now this is like confirmation: you are homeless, right? And these evil central bankers are not going to give you the time of day because you walked in here smelling of cheap liquor, right? One more thing, a bit of advice: next time you go to a business meeting, do not do so reeking of cheap liquor.
Okay, by the way, this issue seems to be like the start of the writer saying, I'm going to try a cool thing. I'm going to try cool transitions. So cheap liquor and then cheap liquor, and it transitions to stain. And then in the next issue, it's really like on the nose. Like every transition is, look, his face is drawn. Radioactive Man's face looks like Rhodey's face. So I don't know. It's not always that successful. There are a couple of moments where I thought it actually kind of worked, but it got on my nerves. It was either this issue or next issue where it started to get on my nerves.
Getting excessive, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I was going to ask, because Right Geek, you just said that Tony is displaying his noble spirit again, right?
Yes.
Is it about the nobility of Tony, or is it that Tony is a cuck? Discuss. I mean, literally.
I feel like
literally a cuck in this case, because it's somebody else's kid. So
why not both?
Yeah. Okay.
Tony
so
simps for the ladies, but he actually acts with self-sacrificial love. He's not just simping. Yeah.
Okay. So what makes the difference between like a simp cuck and a noble cuck? I guess that would be the question for.
Well, he's kind of assuming responsibility for. So I think like cuck proper means they enjoy it. They enjoy being cuck, whereas like a stepdad is not a cuck, because what a stepdad is doing is stepdad is assuming the role of fatherhood for the next generation, right? He is decreasing the evil of a boy being raised without a father and the impact that would have on the next generation by assuming the role of fatherhood.
Right.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because this is one of those things that's gotten really muddied in the current year and in kind of popular cultural discourse, right? Where does the line between being like, can you be a stepdad and not be worried that you're a cuck, right? That kind of thing, or can you get with a woman who's like 8 months pregnant and still keep your self-respect? And well, I guess he doesn't have any self-respect at this point, but still keep your nobility at least. I mean, clearly he doesn't have any self-respect, but still keep the nobility of spirit and his inner basedness. And I honestly don't have an answer for that. I'm not an expert on cuck studies and sympology, but food for thought for people. Like, what is this the right? I mean, obviously it's the right thing to do to help out a woman who is pregnant and about to have a baby, right? Like I would say that is absolutely right. But should he be attaching himself romantically to this woman?
Yeah, I don't think he should. I feel like that. And maybe this is actually intentional on the writer's part, where Tony is doing heroic things, like he's going out in the snow looking for her, like he's risking his life to save her, but he's also like telling her, I love you, right? Like, and Tony's bad decisions about women really helped get him into this position in the first place. So it's alcohol and Cupid's arrow that have kind of been beating Tony up. He's still in the thrall of alcohol. He still chases around ladies as a bum. And Greta, okay, it's interesting how she's handled, because she's a human character, but we're clearly supposed to like look at her as, I don't know, like low class, or she's kind of like a white trashy type of character. There's more dimension to her.
She's a joke character, basically. Yeah. I mean, she's not treated explicitly as a joke, but she is treated as, she's the trailer park mom that it's gross kind of thing.
And I think that's the point, is when she has her kid, it's like her death is still tragic. The kid's life still matters. So it's sort of like, even in like the lowest of the low situations, surrounded by white trash people, Tony still is concerned for their lives. He's still concerned for saving them. Their lives matter, but Tony's at the bottom of the barrel at this point. It's sort of like he hasn't even figured that out yet. I'm actually really curious, because the writer never like comes out and says, yeah, I was definitely doing a thing where it's like, this is going to show how pathetic Tony is, that he's dating Greta, right? But I'm having a hard time interpreting the moral of the story on it.
I mean, well, because it winds up like, it starts off like that, like, oh, haha, look at Tony, he's flopping around with, horrible Mary Beth from the trailer park, right? But then by the end of it, you really start to sympathize with Gretel, and you feel bad for her, and it's kind of the most horrible part in the entire run so far. So I thought that was rather nice, the way they handled her character, right? It surprises you. It comes out of nowhere, and
I think the point. I think the point actually is that Gretel and Tony are both very troubled, very broken people that are just looking for some human contact, and they find it in each other.
Yeah, because again, there's no sex or anything. It's one of these like G-rated comic book romancy type things, right? They just say I love you, and then don't do any hanky panky.
Oh, like explicit, or I mean, because I was under the impression that they were.
Yeah, this right here kind of implies that they were. they were physically as intimate.
Okay, I have one additional conspiracy theory. What if the original plan was to have Griddle literally bear Tony's child, and then the writer got scared and didn't want to go that far? Would
the time frame have worked though? Because it would have taken a while.
That's part of the problem. Yeah. So like if they were initially thinking that and they got cold feet, then they could just come up with she's been pregnant for a long time, right? Because it's even weird how she doesn't look very pregnant. And then I don't remember.
No, she doesn't look pregnant at all. That's the weird. Maybe.
But then in the dialogue, she says, "Oh, the baby will do any week now." So that could be like the scriptwriter making up for a change of plan between them and the artist.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe you're onto that, because that was something weird that I noticed, was she doesn't look pregnant at all. She's just like, "Oh, hey, I'm pregnant." Okay, I guess so. But yeah, I mean, well, the thing that I was thinking the whole time was Breaking Bad with Jesse Pinkman and what's the face?
The prostitute. Yeah, the girl Man, I hate Jesse Pinkman for dragging her back into drugs. But Breaking Bad's like the opposite of Iron Man.
Oh,
no, identify with the characters, you just hate their
not
guts.
Her, not that. That was the good girlfriend. I'm talking about the other one that he was with. What the hell's her name? The prostitute with the bad teeth.
I don't remember her. I mean, maybe
there's another girlfriend that he shacks up with, but I guess his other girlfriend would work too. It's that same kind of like it's basically just like a druggy user relationship where they're both really into their substances, but they still need another warm human being with them while they're partaking. So
yeah.
I think that's exactly what's going on here. That's pretty much how I interpreted it. Is these are two broken, substance addicted, troubled people who are just so desperate for some kind of human intimacy that they've fallen into each other's arms, and that's pretty much the point.
Yeah,
and we know that this works for Tony, because we know that Tony always has to have intimacy with someone to the point that when he's rebounding from a relationship that just broke up, he gets sucked in by Belle Delphine, as Punchy would put it. So Tony in particular is especially desperate for human intimacy. So
this one's not Belle Delphine. This one's quite a bit lower down than She's the
this one's not going to get this one's not going to be able to make a living on OnlyFans.
No.
Maybe GoFundMe at this point, but you never know. But yeah, well, I was going to make a comment about, Tony's looking for love in all the wrong places. He has Rhodey there, but I don't know if you want to get into it.
You did it again.
So he's trying. Dang it!
Oh yeah, this is when that was one of those transitions. I've got to get to my apartment. Yeah.
It ain't yours, yeah. Not anymore. It ain't. The rent and maintenance ain't been paid in 6 months, and what that means is you're out. So this has been going on for at least 6 months, according to that. You never know how time works in these Marvel comics, but
yeah, well, that's actually something I was gonna ask again, because I know we've kind of briefly touched on like Marvel time and things. So the 616 Tony, like this is still the 616 Tony, and that's still the Tony that's in the current getting married to Hellcat thing too, right?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah, for current Tony getting married to Hellcat, this is like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Or something to that effect, yeah. OUT. Take a hike.
Does the baby ever show up again? I mean, I guess we can get into that when the baby shows up.
I think you blogged about that, right, Geek?
It shows up again in 200, which is the last one we're going to look at in the fourth stream.
Okay.
Yeah, but then after that, it doesn't. And yeah, I did blog about that. I was like, that bothers me because I don't think that Tony would just say, "Oh, okay, well, this kid's going into the system because his mother's dead," and there's no indication anywhere that he has a father, but that his father is available and capable of caring for the child. Because when he shows up again at the end of this section that we're gonna go over in the 4th stream, we see that he's being taken care of by a group of nuns, right? So that means that they did not find a father who could take responsibility for the child. I was saying when I was blogging about it, this really bothers me because I don't think Tony would say, "Oh well, this kid is just going to be left in the system." I think that he would want to do something about that. So. Yeah, it's a dropped plot thread that now bothers me.
Yeah, because I mean, if it were me, like I'd probably have him show up as you wanna have new fresh new superheroes for the young generation. I mean, just use that kid. Use all these fun little characters that just get dropped and forgotten about. But
yeah. If I were writing an Iron Man comic, I would bring that kid back. And
that requires knowing continuity.
Yeah, you gotta read stuff first before you can do that, which other writers aren't going to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I would bring the kid back, and I would have to come up with some explanation as to why he was not in the last 30 years of comics after his first couple of appearances. Like the explanation I was coming up with was they did eventually find the father, and the father said, "Thanks, Mr. Stark, but I think I'll take it from here." But that doesn't mean that that he can't come back. Maybe the kid comes back because I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but I would definitely bring the kid back.
He hears about Tony Stark's connection with him and wants to talk to him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was going to say because
there's some secret secret file at ESU that if a kid with this name happens to apply to this school, he gets a scholarship from me, but don't tell them it's from me because his father is really proud and doesn't want my help, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I got the impression that, like, at first I was thinking maybe the bald wino guy was the father. I thought maybe that was what the setup was, but with a woman like that, I mean, it could be anybody. You never know. I mean, she probably works as a prostitute. But I was thinking,
possibility, no.
Yeah, I was thinking that if Marvel time. If this was only 10 years ago, then you wouldn't have to do that much explaining because he could still just be a kid, he's growing up. Like maybe he's maybe he's a young teenager right now who's looking to get on TikTok, and he shows up and he's as like an intern or
maybe
something.
Maybe it's like it's some kid who's getting into trouble on the street, and Iron Man encounters him and then realizes who it is.
Yeah, he's doing like milk crate challenges and door kick challenges and stuff, and being a Julian. He's listening to Joe Rogan on podcast or something naughty like that.
Yeah, and he's getting sucked into the alt-right alternate web sphere. Yeah. The alt-right networks have claimed him.
Maybe he could like crash the wedding with Hellcat or something. And
you think that the MGTOWs would get him because they would say, "Hey, did you notice how when you were homeless there were no homeless shelters for men or something?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is true. I mean, well, there are homeless shelters that cater to children, but it's always like women with children. Like if you're a father with a child, then you kind of shit out of luck because they don't really have accommodations. Which I mean, it's a double standard. I understand why it's there, because it's not anywhere near as common to have, single fathers living on the streets. But yeah, it sucks. So poor kid.
Yeah, this right here is Gretel running away from him because Tony's been going to each of his former apartments, discovering that he owns none of them anymore. So he can't provide for Gretel in the way that she's demanding. So she runs away from him, basically.
I ain't saying she's a gold digger. Sorry.
This is setting up what's going to happen in the last issue of this section, right? She has run away
around,
yeah. Yeah, here's more. Tony Stark would know, but if Tony wasn't off somewhere wrecking himself with booze, I wouldn't be here. Yeah, so lots of mentions of that. Let's see.
I just like to imagine Rhodey flying around all day, fighting everybody, just thinking, man, if only Tony wasn't drinking his brains out, goes and fights someone else. Dang it, I sure wish Tony wasn't drinking his brains out.
Yeah, well, again, this is one of those things that one of the reasons that I really love Rhodey in this whole thing. Like, do we have a lot of stuff from Rhodey's fights here? Or, I mean, I know Tony is kind of the star of the show at this point, but just real quick with Rhodey, because there's this idea. Have you guys ever heard of Blue Falcons?
No.
No.
Right. Okay. It's a slang term, a BF or a buddy, something beginning with F, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, a Blue Falcon is a guy that screws up and does bad things, and then he leaves you picking up the slack, and that's kind of where Rhodey's at right now, right? Like his battle buddy is off drinking and shirking his duty, and who's got to pick up the slack? It's Rhodey. Rhodey's got to do all this crap, so he's grumbling about it, and he seems to still have genuine affection for Tony, right? Unlike many Blue Falcons, where you just you want to write him off completely, but they've got enough history that he's still willing to stick up for Tony. But it's funny because I can I've been in that sort of position of griping like that, like, oh crap, why am I doing this? Why this guy? You got to do it.
It's not
you got to pick up the slack. Yeah, but I mean, it is at that point. Like it shouldn't be your responsibility. Now it is, but you just got to do it because the other guy's a crap bag.
There's when we get to stream number 3 and stream number 4 and some of those later issues, it's going to go into more of Rhodey actually starts to enjoy being Iron Man as he comes into his own in this role, and then when Tony gets sober again, now there's the question of, well, who's going to be Iron Man now? Because, and it's something that actually Rhodey feels a lot of insecurity and resentment about, because he's like, listen, buddy, I've been here picking up the slack while you've been off, fucking up, essentially, and now it's like, I'm gonna have to give it up because you're back, right? And it's another element in this story that really speaks to how Denny O'Neil can include those honest human emotional responses to a situation like this. I love you, buddy, and I want to support you, but I also feel a lot of resentment for the position you put me in,
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I'm trying to find, because I think a lot of it happened in the section that my notes have gone missing for, but there's some examples in the issue where he fights the furry guy, right? Furry guy and Hannah from Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, right? And he he winds up really getting into the role of Iron Man. Like it seems like he's starting to have fun, and he's starting to come into it. Like there's already foreshadowing. Like he's still not entirely confident. He actually boomers the whole thing. He almost winds up losing the suit, but in the most boomer way possible. But he's still he enjoys it by the end. So it's already starting his transformation into War Machine.
Yep.
Yeah, Rhodey punching a furry was my personal favorite.
Unfortunately, I don't have that capture. Do you have it by chance?
Okay. I think that was like 177 something.
Yeah,
that
was like 3 issues ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that was several issues before. During all the Rhodey B plots. I think that was the one where he does more of that coded homosexual stuff with growing the beard and talking about going to see the ladies that never actually show up, right?
Yeah.
And it's all just cover for his mama.
Yeah, well, I mean that like literally because you've heard the phrase like growing a beard, have you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's basically like finding a woman to distract people away from to cover up the fact that you're gay. And he literally grows a beard like a couple panels after talking about going out to find a woman. So
yeah,
like a fake beard that he plasters on. So it's food for thought, basically.
Tinfoil hats secured.
Well,
they're turning the roadies gay.
Well, it's funny. Ever since you mentioned that in the last stream, Marm, I think you said on Twitter, like, now that you mentioned it, Punchy, I can't stop seeing it.
Well, there's actually the very next issue, like 173, I think, like the one that we haven't done yet. The cover is very suggestive too. I'm just going to throw that out there because.
Well, but couldn't you apply that to all like super heroic, like professional wrestler stuff? Like it's all strapping men in skin tight suits. It's all.
Have you seen the cover for 183?
I haven't yet. No, it's gonna be
okay.
surprise.
Well, you just wait and look at the cover for 183, and you'll see what I mean.
Well, and the cover for 172 with Captain America carrying Tony in his pajamas and that
again, that's another one of those like bridal carry kind of things that keeps popping up over and over and over again. Which again was one of these reasons why I think he's intentionally being compared to like Ishtar and Persephone, the underworld bride who sinks into Hades and has to claw her way back up.
We have now entered the Fujoshi bait part of the program.
Oh God!
we talk about all the ways that we talk about all the ways that Rhodey and Tony are gay.
All right. Well, I don't have too much more about that, at least from these ones. I mean, that was pretty explicit. Like that whole the whole furry episode, where he's talking about finding women and then getting fake beards, and just the way that he keeps thinking about Tony and waxing poetic about Tony. I mean, it's questionable. Oh yeah, okay. And 176. There's another example because I have like a whole big folder of examples of Rhodey being a tough guy. It's anyway. I still get a kick out of using this armor, and this is as good an excuse as any to do a number as Iron Man, right? Like so, even as early as 176, he's already like getting his testosterone rush from being Iron Man.
He's starting he's starting to understand why Tony would want to do it, right? It's oh yeah, this is actually pretty fun at times. Yeah, sometimes it's a pain in the ass, but sometimes it's really rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and when he makes fun of the wage slaves too, like the wage cucks in that same issue, doing a big deed, even if I can't guess which big deed, made me realize I can't go back to being a wage slave.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Anti-wage cuck, Rhodey.
I don't think I saw wage cuck exist until post 2016. 4chan stuff. Yeah, but wage slave goes back.
Yeah, wage slave goes wage cuck's basically the new version of wage slave. Just like cuck is the new version of unmanly word beginning with F, basically.
Well, they had people cuckolds back in that was my favorite. It was the Middle Ages, right? They were storming a castle and they put cuckold on their flag to make fun of the king they were besieging.
Well, I mean, it was slightly different. I think nowadays, it's kind of got away from the official technical meaning of cuckold. That old meaning is still part of it, but I think it's more like a general term of disparagement for simpy men, than specifically hey, your wife slept with the stable boy and now the prince of your kingdom is a peasant, right?
Yeah.
At least long enough to warm your bones, need to play a stew. You're new, ain't you? I haven't seen you around before. Okay.
Yeah, so this is I've got captures from the build up to 182, where he's this is at the soup kitchen, and he's here looking for Gretel. Asking people, have you seen a woman with red hair going to have a baby? You mean Gretel? Nah, she ain't been in lately. Tell you though, I hope she's found a warm place to stay.
Yep.
Because they say New York's going to be hit with the worst blizzard in 40 years for morning. So this is the build up to 182.
Yeah.
In 181. Yeah.
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 They need a soup hotel in New York. That's what they need. It's like quick fill.
Yeah.
That's a good that's a good cliffhanger too, because you just see him walking straight into the snow, right? Yeah. So everybody who reads this knows this is going to be the primary hook of the next issue.
The snow's getting worse too, as it visibly more fierce as he's going along.
Yeah.
So, and he's receding away from you. He's walking away from you, so you can't quite reach out to save him. Yeah, that must have been weird, having to read comic. Well, I mean, I guess I did have to read comics piecemeal, when I was a little kid. But it's weird trying to think back to that now, because nowadays you flip through an online archive and you get like 20 years of stuff all in one go. But
meanwhile, this is what Gretel is doing. Hey, where's that guy you were hanging around with? Tony Stark? Oh, to heck with him. He said he loves me, but I don't think he means it. Meanwhile, he's outside in the snow. And then this is it. This is the one. This is my favorite one. My favorite.
Good on them for using the cover to express what the focus of the issue is going to be. I always like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
that is something that gets lost in cover artistry today. Sometimes is nowadays it seems like people want to do covers as basically portfolio pieces instead of trying to indicate to the reader what's going to be inside. And that's kind of a flaw.
So you guys wouldn't want this to have I don't know, maybe Spider-Man fighting a gorilla or something as the cover.
Well, Spider-Man was fighting.
Did you make that up, or are you referencing something?
I mean, I'm referencing like a million different covers.
Well, you can have Spider-Man fighting a gorilla on the cover as long as Spider-Man actually fights a gorilla inside the issue.
No, he can't, because that's the rule of like gorilla covers. Like there's never a gorilla in a gorilla cover. There's like this whole big history about that stuff. And I think what was it, Spider-Man? Because I know Zach's done episodes on that of like superheroes that just show up on covers and are nowhere in the issue. I think it was Spider-Man that he was pointing out specifically that they do that a lot. But I don't remember which episode it was, though. But I have to look it up.
Okay. But anyway, for those of you in the audience who haven't watched videos that I did back in 2020, this is my all-time most favorite issue of Iron Man. Just FYI, number 182.
Do you own the physical?
I own the physical. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So have a lot of emotional investment in this issue. And yeah, this is basically this issue basically represents the major turning point in Denny O'Neil's run. I would say kind of the equivalent of a Gettysburg or a Saratoga, but for Denny O'Neil's Iron Man run. And let's just jump into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
And actually, one other thing I was thinking too, like about the cover. There's another trope that shows up quite frequently, like in older comic books, and that's like the kind of bait and switch, like, oh god, is Superman really going to kill Lois Lane kind of thing, right? And then you open it up and it turns out it's got nothing to do with Superman killing Lois Lane, or it was all just a dream, or something really cheap and crappy like that, right? Like the cover teases something interesting, and then when you actually read it, it's nowhere near as interesting as the cover. And this one actually bucks that trend. Just like he's bucking the trend with the Vietnam vet, he bucks the trend of having is Tony Stark gonna die? Yeah, it's all going to be crap. But no, actually, it is. It lives up to the cover for a change.
Yeah.
one of the few times that actually happens, when there's a super dramatic death cover, actually happens. So, bang on Denny.
Every winter, the first bad storm, we find 5 or 6 winos in doorways, frozen to death. And you, Pally, are a wino. Yeah, but you don't understand. I gotta find Gretel. So he's still looking for Gretel. This is how he ends up in the blizzard. So this is just him wandering around yelling for her.
Okay, this is neat. This is a neat camera trick too, because so he walks to the camera, it all turns brown because it's his trench coat and he's walking away. So it's imitating the cinema shot where you do you hide a cut by like having the camera go into shadow or something, so it looks like the person walks through the camera. But you can do that without any fancy camera tricks in the comic. Maybe the only thing I don't quite like is I don't like just the solid brown panel, but it is a really neat camera shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it works with the solid brown. I'm trying to picture it with like some shading and details. I'm not sure.
Okay, so basically what happens is he pawns off his trench coat, so now he's just in his regular clothes in the worst blizzard of the year, right?
Yep.
Good planning.
Yeah. I don't want wine. I want the best this will buy. So he's pawned off his coat, and the money he got, he's now using to buy liquor instead of buying a place to stay. And the guy at the store is like, You gonna party tonight, huh? What you gonna celebrate? That's a good question. What am I celebrating? A very, very good question. If I had to give an answer, I'd say I'm celebrating the end, the living end, the end of living. So yeah, he's basically given up now at this point.
The suicide
Completely.
element is starting to become a textual element. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great panel
Yeah.
here. Look at this, or series of panels. Yeah.
Yeah. Feeling no pain, huh, Pally? Feeling no pain. Had it all, didn't I? Millionaire, industrialist, playboy, inventor, hero even. I can't forget hero, can I? Admired by men, loved by women, and none of it meant as much to me as this. Yeah, good panel design here. But I didn't realize that until it was too late. So I'm stumbling around in a storm as lost as any man ever was, with no one to search for me, no hope that I can be found. I'm cold. Yeah, so this is where the suicide gets textual here. I guess I'm dying. I guess it doesn't matter. I guess I don't care. Which is sad. I'm sorry. So this is why this is my favorite issue, because the heart and the soul that is put into this. We've been talking about it all along, the genuine human emotion, right? From Tony and from the other characters that he comes into contact with, everyone feels human and realistic. They don't feel like corporate shells of character. They feel like people who have their struggles and their the things that they have to deal with, essentially. And this right here basically just it leaves me at a loss for words. Let me just put it that way.
I really wanted to. I had a big thought about this page when I was reading it, which is, I mentioned Hamlet earlier, right? To be or not to be.
Yeah.
Hamlet wants to die because he doesn't know what to do and how to move forward. Tony, right. There's this neat variation on it where Tony wants to die because if he lets alcohol kill him, then his life isn't worth saving. So really beautifully, the thing he's doing to kill himself is the reason why he feels like his life isn't worth anything. The evil itself that is creating more of the evil problem for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the next panel when I scroll down here. He talks about why he wants to die. Yeah. So scroll up a little bit here. So this is him talking about why he wants to die. Because if I could do what I've done, if I could help this sickness I've got destroy me, that I'm not worth saving, then life has no meaning anyway.
Followed by him taking 2 drinks in a row immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's he's at the point now where he basically feels like he is not it's not worth saving him, because he feels that he's irredeemable, essentially. But then, lo and behold, don't fail me now. Okay.
Oh no.
Lo and behold, Gretel appears. Right. So the way the story is going so far, Tony is now in the place where he just wants to die. He's decided that he is no longer worth saving. He's a complete shell of a man who deserves basically to die. And then Gretel shows up, and this is like the turning point of the story, right? You gotta help me. I'm gonna have my baby. It's coming any minute now. So now we have to help Gretel have her baby, right? And this is why I love this character so much. Like, he gets saved by rescuing a baby. essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, is he's still drinking, right? So he's not free of alcohol yet. All that's really happening here is he's getting a purpose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's
Right.
not saving himself. I mean, it's not him that he cares about. It's the baby. So he can still drink and have alcohol. He just, maybe he can live a little bit longer just to let the baby get a head start.
Yeah. So they're huddling in the doorway drinking here as she's in labor. And this is where we get to the part where he talks about the armor, right? What are you thinking about, Tones? Armor I used to wear that I thought made me invisible. So this page right here coming up, where he talks about what the armor is for him, right? Armor that would withstand anything, keep anything in the world from touching me, keep anything out, and keep me in. I think that's called being a prisoner. They say I'm a genius. I've wondered why it is that I use my ability to design a human shell that keeps things out, that keeps me in. Probably no accident. A part of me died inside that shell, and another part was always screaming in pain. So this is the part you were alluding to earlier, Marm, about Tony talking about the armor as the shell that keeps the world out, right?
And I just noticed this. They also have the old Iron Man suit, and like in the very first issue, they were really playing up the man in the iron mask thing. So O'Neill is actually recognizing a core aspect of the character that isn't always present. Like the original idea is, it's like he's trapped in the iron armor, right? And now he's picking up on that and making an emotional point with it. So it's very respectful to the history of this character too.
Yeah, it's like he read the other Iron Mans. I mean, this kind of gets to what we were discussing in the previous streams as well. This aspect of Tony where he can only be himself when he's inside this Iron Man suit, because he feels like he's safe from his father, basically. Like he's safe from the outside world, but he's safe from like that influence that's coming in and trying to prevent him from being who he is. But he's at the same time he's trapped in there, right? So it's kind of like the alcohol in a way, insofar as like it's something that imprisons him but also liberates him. Although I think it's a good deal more productive than the alcohol. Since the alcohol doesn't go around saving the day, but
but the parallels, the parallels between the alcohol and the armor are drawn all the time in Iron Man comics. Most of the good Iron Man writers recognize and understand that armor and alcohol are both addictions of a sort. The former is, of course, the much more pro-social addiction, but it's still something that as you say, it traps him, but it also liberates him at the same time. And fundamentally, the reason that he builds the armor, as he says, is without it, he can't be who he really is.
Yeah, because he's too worried about the outside world getting in and judging him and doing all the things that his father did to him, basically. But it's not exactly the most productive use of his time. Like it would be nice if he could find a way to be himself without needing the armor. Right? Maybe Hellcat will help him out with
that. Yeah, sure.
I want like a smash cut where it's like they get married and the immediate next panel is Tony in a gutter drinking again.
That'd be good. Oh, damn it. See, I didn't want to laugh during this issue. I was like, this is too depressing, but okay, that is a good visual.
I can't believe I married that woman.
Yeah.
Worst idea I ever had. This quiets the screams, dulls the pain, referring to the alcohol, hurries along the slow dying. And then we have here.
Very good use of making a birth feel dramatic, by the way, while not showing anything traumatic for the 12-year-olds. Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. Basically showing nothing at all, but still making it very apparent what's going on.
Like she doesn't even get her pants off, which I thought was pretty impressive.
And having him drop the liquor bottle too. That's just and a good detail. Yeah. And then right after the birth, she dies. You beat me to it, Gretel.
Now it's not dealt with textually, but Tony didn't save the money to buy a hotel room, right? So I don't know. Maybe it's implied that they couldn't get anywhere because she was having that baby right now, right? So maybe he never would have had an opportunity to save her. But there's at least an open question of whether if he had said no to that drink, could he have done more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if he had there were millions of drinks that he could have said no to that would have prevented this. So it's kind of one of those which one do you blame situations.
No, Gretel's mostly responsible for her own actions here. She runs off because for a moment he doesn't have a room for them, so then she just runs off on her own.
Yeah, I mean Gretel. It's the same way with Tony, right? Like it's her choice. It's her life and her choices that led up to that. And the only really innocent character right here is the baby, which is why Tony is like Tony's not quite able to bring himself to save Gretel, but he is able to bring himself to help the baby. Yeah.
But you won't die, baby. You won't. I promise. So Tony is pretty certain that he's going to die, but not until at least this baby has been safeguarded, right?
Yep.
And that is basically what keeps him alive. That's what keeps him alive through the night. Oh, yeah. And then this is at the end. Tony and the baby do, in fact, get rescued when Tony is basically on the brink of death. And at that moment, Rhodey comes back from Secret Wars. That's where he was. And And one day we maybe can do a stream on Secret Wars if you want to do that, Punch, since you like Rhodey.
I mean, if you think it's worth doing, I'd always be up for it.
Okay, like it's like 30 years later, and like Secret Wars is like the little kid inside of me is like saying, "Yeah, Secret Wars, that's so cool!" Like the event is memorable.
So Rhodey comes back from Secret Wars and hears that Tony is in the hospital with his hands all wrapped up, probably because he got frostbite.
Yeah, they mention him getting frostbite in the thing.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah. Tony, how'd you come to this? You, of all people. You had the whole package. Money, brains, women, everything the American male would sell his soul for. Does sell his soul for sometimes. Is any of this my fault? Did you need something I couldn't give you? Wouldn't give you? Maybe I envied you, secretly wanted you to fail so I could take your place. Don't die, Tony. Don't burden me with that. That'd be more than I could handle. There's another reason, Tony. You're my friend. The best ever. And this is when Tony wakes up.
This is what helped me forgive Rhodey for all those panels of him saying, "Man, I wish Tony wasn't drinking his brains out while doing everything about helping Tony."
Well, I don't know. I always sympathize with Rhodey in those panels, but I can see where you're coming from. If
once I saw it, once I started seeing it, I couldn't unsee it. It started driving me nuts.
Yeah, well, if it's bothering you, I mean, this is a good way to kind of bring Rhodey back and redeem him.
Yeah, but like as I've been saying, I also think it's realistic, right, for a friend to have affection for a buddy, but still be pissed at the buddy for destroying himself. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this is the
no
scene
comment
where
on that.
where Tony says, something happened to me that night in the cold and despair and terror of those endless hours. I looked down at the baby, helpless and scared, ignorant as it's possible to be, and I realized that life is the most precious thing there is. Any kind of life, the baby's or mine. If it was important to save the infant, then it was equally important to save me. So the implication is, overnight, as he was trying to keep this baby warm, he realized that actually his life is worth saving also. And that's what basically pulls him out of the tailspin. So Tony Stark, rescued by a baby.
Well, I was going to make a comment about all lives matter, but I don't want to make those during this episode.
I guess it would be more all life matters in this context, right?
Well, I mean, is it all life or is it just all human life, though? I mean, he seems to be concerned more about like human beings than he is about
bacon.
Yeah. I think he's still going to eat bacon. He's not going to be stabbing people in the neck for giving out plastic bags or anything. I don't think. Yeah.
I've been killing myself for years. That's not news, but I'm going to stop.
And it's also, kind of nice actually he drinks water, right? So he's been drinking.
Yeah.
Now he gets a drink, but it's a drink of water, right?
Right.
Yep.
I won't be wearing armor for a while. That's a mistake I won't be making. So this is Tony saying that, I've been using the armor as a shield. I need to figure out how to be myself as my actual self, right?
Yep.
And not rely on crutches. Yeah, I need to be able to be honestly myself without relying on these crutches to protect myself. Yeah. And
I think that's just fine with Rhodey. Rhodey's pretty stoked about that.
And that's him starting on his road to recovery. And thus endeth 182, my favorite Iron Man comic of all time.
Notice all the one-way signs.
Yeah.
No standing at any time. It's implying that, you either go forward or you go backwards, and you can't stay still, right? Even the road signs are rich in symbolic meaning. So he's got a choice to make. Which way will he go?
Right.
I mean, we know which way he goes because we know he's still alive.
Even the readers have confidence. The readers know he's going to make it out of it. They even kind of like hinted that in like the little kid Avengers story, right? Like obviously the point of knocking your hero down is to come back out the other side of it. Yeah. So there's been this confidence the whole time. It's also kind of neat that they are resolving Tony Stark's alcoholism before they put Tony back in the Iron Man armor. Like if they just immediately stepped him back in the Iron Man armor, it would feel rushed. And it's going to give it's giving us a little bit more time with Rhodey without continually worrying if Tony Stark's going to drink himself to death. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would just be miserable. I mean, he was bad enough when he was just taking like a couple drinks at noontime and then trying to put on the Iron Man suit, like as a complete skell or whatever. He'd probably destroy like half the city, to be honest. If he got back into the Iron Man suit. Do you think he might be tempted to turn into like a super villain too, or at least like a minor villain, like just robbing liquor stores or something? Would that be like, as long as he doesn't hurt anyone? Do you think that would be on the cards? Would that be a bridge
No,
too far?
I think that, I don't think he would do that. I think that I read a piece of fan fiction once in which he sank into prostitution. I almost think that would be more likely for him, because I don't think that he would want. I don't think that he would want to hurt other people, but he would be perfectly happy with destroying himself.
Well, what do you think the worst thing he would do if he got back into the Iron Man suit at this point when he's still a raging alcoholic? Like, if he was allowed to get that kind of power in that suit, what would happen?
We saw him like flying around and knocking things over, right? So
he's
getting back. Yeah. It's him going straight back into drunk driver phase, basically booze machine instead of war machine.
Yeah, it would. He'd be destroying more billboards and almost hitting people with lampposts, like he was in the earlier issues from last stream.
Yeah, well, because I mean that's kind of what I'm wondering, because he was losing control and he almost got to the point, and that was when he was drinking far less than he is now. So I mean, I wouldn't want to think of Tony as the kind of guy who'd turn to crime to feed his habit, but he did almost kill a couple of his employees by accident while he was drinking. So I don't know. Hopefully Marvel does not try and revisit this storyline, because that might just wind up being really miserable. But
here's the thing, like there have been a lot of Iron Man comics, more than 600, and the one thing that the modern writers all remember, they don't remember much of anything else, but they all remember that once he was an alcoholic. So they do keep bringing that up. But
well, do they ever?
This is kind of his Uncle Ben moment, right? Like Spidey got his Uncle Ben moment right off the bat. Tony had to build up to it a bit.
Yeah.
Do they ever knock him off the wagon really hard though? Like, has there been any like 2.0 drunky story
that ever got to this? There have been some relapses, but never to this point. No.
Okay.
They've been short-term relapses that short-term relapses or near relapses that generally got resolved pretty quickly. No one has ever gotten this dark.
It kind of hurt it, actually. If Tony ever fell down this low again, it would kind of spoil like the magic of this story being the lowest he can possibly go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I hope they don't revisit this kind of thing, like do another version of it, because I don't think they'd be able to do it as well, and B, I think this story was really well done. You don't need to do a remake of Hamlet, right? Because you've got Hamlet right there.
It's better to like acknowledge that this exists in his history and it's something that he always struggles with without necessarily having another relapse. And there are times when this has happened, like Volume 3 Iron Man. I actually like a lot of that volume, and in the beginning of that volume, Carol Danvers starts to have problems with alcohol, and Tony is the principal person that is trying to help her with it. So he now becomes like the sponsor who's like, I know exactly what you're going through. Let me try to help you, right? And that, I think, is a better way to acknowledge that this has happened, that it exists in his history, that it is an ongoing problem for him, without necessarily repeating a story that's already been done.
Right, letting Tony grow into more like an older, look, kid, I've been around the block a few times. Let me tell you. I've always felt that would be the most natural evolution, because in 2016 it was sort of like, well, we've got this new generation of heroes, right? Who are gonna phase out the old heroes or whatever, and it's actually pretty natural to let a character who was a hero in the 80s start to take on like a mentor role for the next generation of heroes. Right. I guess be their Dumbledore or Master Splinter.
Scooby and Scrappy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Though I guess Scrappy kind of mentors Scooby in the art of courage, right?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the reasons why people were getting so upset about Scrappy. Like I'm personally, like, I am a big fan of Scrappy. I like Scrappy a lot as a kid, but all like the Gen X boomer, like, anti-Scrappy stuff I was reading on the internet back in the day, it was always really mad that, you know, Scrappy was stealing the spotlight from Scooby rather than having Scooby be the mentor for Scrappy, right? So I guess it's kind of like current year problems with comic books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Gen X aren't as bad as boomers, but they get it wrong once in a while.
Yeah.
Well, at least you acknowledge that Gen X exists.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gen X is the
that still
equivalent
a
of
thing?
middle. They're the middle child of generations.
Yeah, I mean, is that still a thing? Like, I used to hear about that a lot back in like the 90s and like early 2000s, but ever since then, like, nobody cares. Like, there's still boomers. People still talk about baby boomers, like literal baby boomers, as well as like metaphoric boomers. You know, obviously people still talk about millennials and Zoomers and
Well,
stuff.
I think it was when baby boomers got on Facebook, because Facebook was at first, you have to be a college student to use it, and then you were cool if you used it, and then boomers used it. So that's when I noticed boomer discourse emerge.
Yeah, well, I mean, you used to be cool if you were on MySpace, but then MySpace got axed, so, you know, you kind of had to go to Facebook. But then everybody that was cool migrated away to YouTube, and they're still here, like Right Geek. See. Oh,
just FYI, for people in the audience, I was born at the tail end of Gen X. I actually consider myself like a Xennial. I'm like on the transition between Generation X and like the
Gen
Boomer
Y,
Millennial.
right? Because now I see people trying to separate Gen Y from Millennial, and I can never keep it straight. I was told I was Gen Y and Millennial, and no one knows. It's like that South Park scene where they cut the chicken's head off. That's how they decide what the generations are named.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not a real thing, anyways, right? It's all just like kind of cultural nonsense. But I've always been under the impression that it was like 1980 and later was millennial. Like 1980 up until like 95 or 99 or 2000 was millennial, and then like the 1970s was Gen X. But I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's just marketing terms. Demographics.
I was under the impression that starting at 65 is where you get Gen X.
Yeah.
And then millennial really starts at 85, because my brother was born in 81, and he really is much more Gen X than millennial.
Okay.
But I think there's a difference. I think there's even a difference between the people who were born between 65 and 75 and the people who were born between 75 and 85.
Yeah.
I think they're two different groups. You know, my brother and I are in the 75 to 85 group. And I do think there's a difference between us and the people who are 10 years older than us a little bit. But we're definitely different we're different from the millennials too. So yeah, Gen Y, Xennial, the Oregon Trail generation.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Because I'm Oregon Trail 2. Yeah. We didn't have Oregon Trail. We only had Oregon Trail 2.
Well, we didn't have Oregon Trail either. We had Color a Dinosaur instead. But we always heard about Oregon Trail, and I think in like second grade or something, somebody found like a bootleg version of Oregon Trail, and it was like the coolest thing in the computer lab. But mostly Color a Dinosaur. Unfortunately, Amazon Trail and stuff. What Warzord is saying that we should have a Batman Iron Man crossover written by Denny O'Neil. is that even possible?
It's possible under
well,
rare
Denny O'Neil has
circumstances.
passed on.
Yeah.
Denny O'Neil, unfortunately, has passed on.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, but besides that, I mean, like, well, like Batman, Iron Man, is that like, because they're different companies, so would they be willing to do that?
There have been rare instances where they've done crossovers. The Batman Spider-Man comic is one of my favorite comics of all time, and I read it when I was 6, so I was heartbroken when I found out that they couldn't cross over because they were two different companies, because one of my very first comics was Batman and Spider-Man working together as a team.
That's too bad. Like, what kind of circumstances would they need then? I mean, is there like
they basically just write one-off comics where they just exist in the same universe so they can meet and interact. They just never reference. So they're really just like one-off short stories where Marvel characters can meet DC characters, right? And then they always would do a thing where they'd have a villain from one character, conspire with a villain from another character, and the two villains are trying to stab each other in the back while the heroes team up. So.
Okay, so kind of like Mortal Kombat versus DCU.
Yeah, that's where the panel of Joker telling Red Skull, "I may be a homicidal maniac, but I'm an American homicidal maniac." When he finds out Red Skull's a Nazi.
Yeah, that's pretty basic.
Well, since both of the companies acknowledge that a multiverse exists, that's basically how you would have to justify it, as they meet as multiverse pieces interact, essentially. Or different sections of the multiverse interact.
So would there be some kind of like Time Lord kind of thing going on, or like how would it work exactly? Would they just like show up in like a dimensional rift or something, or
it would be something like that.
Yeah, that might be interesting.
I agree with Warzord though that there should be a Batman. There should have been a Batman Iron Man crossover written by Denny O'Neil. I agree.
In an ideal world, yes, there should have been.
Yeah.
How many issues do we want to do for Iron Man Stream Part 3?
That's a good question. How many? We're going up to 2,000, right?
We're going up to 200. Yeah.
Sorry, 2,000. Jesus.
Oh boy.
2,000.
Oh
boy. Yeah. There actually hasn't been a 2,000 yet.
Not yet,
they got
but we can write it
in like 2016 or something like that. But
yeah,
I think going up to I'll let you know on that, because I think I want to go up to the issue where Tony puts on the armor again for the first time, because that's like the next turning point.
Do you remember which issue that was? We've been doing like 8 to 10.
Yeah.
So if it's like 203, then we could do up to like 193, 195 or something, and then the rest of them.
It might be 193. Let me check.
Oh, is that where he gets the armor on?
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the part where he puts the armor on for the first time. Yeah, it is 193. Okay, So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right. I'd say we could just bang out the last part of it then. I mean, if that's good with you guys.
I'm cool with that. Yeah.
Well, here was my plan, because the climax of Denny O'Neil's run is actually issue 200. So I was going to take you guys there. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do 183 to 193 in the next stream, and then the stream following that will be 194 to 200.
Good cliffhanger. Yeah. Good cliffhanger to end on, because we've got the major Shakespearean one today, so now we can get his redemption arc and starting to close way out. I'm kind of structuring this here so that we always end on some kind of turning point. So the last stream ended on he's lost his company. He's basically lost everything, right? This one ends on
he finally hits bottom and turns a corner. So the next one will end on he finally puts the armor on again, right? And then 200 will end on the final triumph, essentially. So
yeah, that sounds good. And oh god, he's fighting Godzilla. What? Why is he fighting Godzilla?
Because it's fun, Punch.
Okay, well, yeah. Oh no, actually, what's the face is fighting Godzilla? Looks like Iron Man's just. Oh no, yeah, okay, he does show up and he's chucking Godzilla into a volcano or something. What the hell is going on? All right, I'm gonna read up to 193. So
surprises to come.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So thank you, Warzard, for listening in live time, and for any of you who will be listening asynchronously later, thank you for being a member of my audience, and we will catch you guys later on the next stream.
Do not drink and drive, kids.
Yeah, and be on the lookout for Godzilla next stream. Special guest appearance.
Yeah. Special guest appearance.
So